Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
not good. Believe me, not good.
would you say the overall attitude of Buffalo is? Pro-Palestine, indifferent, Zionist?
How about the side of the humans? How about the side of humanity?
Children are starving.
It's hard to judge like the entire city, but
Right.
there are a lot of Zionists. I'd say that the most reactions I see are people looking away. They're uncomfortable because they don't understand it or they don't know anything about it, so they don't want to look because they don't want to find out because it is uncomfortable and it's scary and it's horrifying. So a lot of it is people just looking straight ahead. We get, memes hearing that there are a lot of pro-Palestine people in Buffalo. There are a lot. But there are also a lot of people who don't want to be uncomfortable, so they ignore it and pretend it's not happening. And then there's, a Zionist here, a Zionist there. But I would like to see more reactions in general because people are kind of just keeping their heads straight because they don't want to know what's going on.
What is this called?
Krupnik. So this is Krupnik, Polish honey liquor, made in Poland. This is the next variation, different bottle style, right after the original tree. So the original tree was smaller, and this is the next variation.
All right, so
flavor, different bottle.
Okay, and there's a Polish beer, right?
This is Żywiec IPA, also from Poland. Hoppy and aromatic, green label. We also have Żywiec Białe and Żywiec Red.
All right, and this place has been around for how long?
1895, and we were incorporated in 1897.
And it's always been like a Polish library and center. All right, cool. All right, so let's see how this goes down. Yeah, totally. They brought it all on. It's sweet. It's like a sweet shop. Beer. It's good. If you're in Buffalo, where should they go? Where should they go if they're in Buffalo?
The Adam Miscavige Library Dramatic Circle, 612 Fillmore Avenue, Buffalo, New York.
All right. Good stuff. I'll definitely try those. What's it called? Krupnik. Very good. Very good.
That was some good shit, man. You with us?
Yes, I am. Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a Sunday evening edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobler, of course.
Hello. Look who forgot to unmute their mic now.
Yeah, exactly. Got a little Palestine protest in Buffalo over the weekend, a little leisure time over the weekend. Hope everybody had a good weekend.
All right, so one of the reasons I wanted to show like what was going on in the background, I would not go so far as to say that you do not have these kind of like PMC-ish, Libby kind of enclaves. So that's a cafe on the corner, which I rather like. Right next door is a bookstore that has like a big "We Stand with Ukraine" poster in the window. Nothing about Palestine, like not a word. So it's very much got those vibes. So you got those kids like protesting Palestine. And then you have like the lefty libs sitting there having their Sunday lattes, just like completely ignoring them. Now, the other place that I went to actually to see a show, it's not coming up for me. I think I'm getting slow. Are you seeing what I have up on the screen?
No, because you have the video up on the screen. So you got to take the video down.
Mattel, I don't know. I'm not so sure that.
What? No, I'm trying to do that.
Yeah, no, I know.
Right. Okay. So I'm gonna murder this. Do you know how to say that? Adam Mikowicz.
That's an easy one.
Yeah, library and dramatic center. So they have like I think it was a garage that this group Torn Space converted. But yeah, 612 Fillmore Avenue. Very limited hours. Like a lot of things in Buffalo don't open on Monday and Tuesday. Or Sunday. A lot of them are closed on Sunday. So really, to go there, you got to go really Friday or Saturday, 7 to 2. Very cool place. Krupnik, very tasty. Very tasty. Very good. It's like a honey shot. And I saw a show there, Runtime. Look, that shit's trippy. Like this is like the kind of stuff they would do at the kitchen where it's this whole audio visual experience, no actors, just rear screen projection. If you like that kind of thing, I don't think I've ever seen it done better. What was kind of interesting about seeing something like this up here is not only do they not really do stuff like this in New York City, where I think a lot of people in their mind associate it with like experimental art and that kind of thing. You need kind of leisure time, and you need people with enough room to breathe to come see that kind of thing. Like, they had a good house for it, man. I don't even know that you could get a house like that for that kind of like really experimental work in the city now, man. When you walk by a line, it's not a line for a band, it's not a line for a show, it's a line for some new concoction that went viral on Instagram of froyo on a pizza in a sushi wrap.
Right. Yeah. No. Well, a lot going on, I guess, over the weekend there. So that's fun. That's fun. Good art scene there. Decent.
I have been impressed so far.
That's good.
Yeah, and hey, man, I was just riding my bike along, and these kids just happened to be out there protesting.
Just happened to be there. Well, good for them.
Yep.
Good for them. Starting to see a bit of a sea change here, which is good. But hey, shout out to all the moms out there. Happy Mother's Day. Shout out to my mom. Shout out to Amanda, my wife, the best mom there ever was. We are bookending the show tonight with Mother's Day segments. So the first and final segment of the show are going to be Mother's Day related. And so let's jump right in. This post went pretty viral here, a couple million views as of this morning. Brand new mother confirms the cost to have a baby in America. She even shows her bills. This is how much it costs to give birth in America: $44,318.41. So let's take a look at this.
Birth in America, $44,318.41. I had my little guy 3 weeks ago, so they definitely wasted no time sending me that bill. I had a vaginal birth with epidural, no complications, and I was in the hospital for about 2 days. So I'm gonna break everything down for you guys and show you guys how much everything costs and how much my insurance did cover. A private one-bed room and board was $10,100. Pharmacy was $89.40. Laboratory was $859. My epidural was $1,845. Labor room and delivery was $10,275. Specialty services was $585, and then other services was $1,347. And that's just one bill. We have multiple bills to go through, guys. But my insurance did cover $20,353.62.
Oh, that's good.
And then I also still have to pay my doctor who delivered my baby. So that was $4,395.85, and that's with insurance already. I'm not sure exactly how much it would have been without insurance. Then I did get another like epidural bill, and this is just for the doctor, not the epidural itself, and that is $2,060.86. And then lastly, baby boy also gets a bill too, and his bill is $12,761.30. And this is without insurance. We're still waiting for him to process on our insurance, so for now this is the cost without it. And if you're curious on how much we pay for insurance for our family,
yeah, right, exactly, yeah,
lazy
the baby needs to bootstrap it.
Yeah,
yeah,
he needs to get to work, help out his mom, help out his family.
Exactly,
that's how they used to do it.
Yeah, I hope they don't live in Florida.
It's a beautiful, it's an old-fashioned term, child labor. They don't say it anymore.
They don't say it anymore. They never say that anymore. It's like groceries.
It's like groceries.
But here's the real kicker at the end. So she just outlines all of these outrageous costs: $10,000 hospital costs plus labor and delivery costs, labor and delivery room costs. So you're talking about $20,000 just to get in the door and stay there. Now let's see how much she pays in premiums every month for health insurance in order to be charged all this money, of which it looks like the insurance company is going to cover about half.
Waiting for him to process on our insurance, so for now this is the cost without it. And if you're curious on how much we pay for insurance for our family of 5 now, it's $2,500 a month. We originally were paying $2,138.48 for just the 4 of us. But other than that, that is how much it costs to give birth in America. Crazy.
So $2,500 a month in premiums, and then you still get charged that amount. And the insurance company, as she said, looks like it's about to cover about half of those costs, which means she'll still be looking at a little over $20,000 out of pockets to give birth. So that's a heck of a start to your new family.
Values.
Yep, family values. Well, that's exactly this guy's point here. Elapsing Time says, a young couple together 15 years with 2 kids told me they never married because it's cheaper to stay single. As single parents, they qualify for health care and government aid because they're 2 single incomes, covering all costs. They plan to have more children, incentivized by a system that rewards avoiding marriage. This isn't just a loophole, it's a symptom of a society eroding family values. Social media is buzzing with talk of declining birth rates and policies that seem to discourage having kids. When staying single pays better than building a stable family, something's deeply wrong. We need to rethink a system that penalizes commitments and devalues the foundation of family. Yes, this is why, one reason among many, obviously the genocide of the family in Gaza happening right now undermines the family values argument from a lot of conservatives who like to preach that at the top of their lungs. But so does this. You're making it very, very difficult for people to have the traditional families, quote unquote, that you love so much. And I say quote unquote because the whole idea, I mean, look, I'm a family man. I'm pro-family. I'm adamantly pro-family. But this vision of the ideal American family that like dominates right of center political discourse is really refers to a tiny window of time, like post World War II and pre-women's lib 60s movement. I mean, you're talking about maybe 10, 15 years where the husband buttons up a collared shirt and closes the white picket fence and goes to work, and the wife stays home with the kids and cooks and does the chores and things like that. Like, that was a very small period of time. During World War II, women were in the factories. Before that, especially life on the frontier, women had all kinds of jobs. They had a tremendous market value, not just human value, which I think everyone has, but market value in the old days. And then past the 60s, they were in the workplace. So, the whole vision of the traditional family is really a loaded term in a sense. And it really doesn't mean what we say it means. It refers to a very tiny window of time. But I am pro-family. I do believe in the value of a nuclear family. And this makes it very, very difficult to start one and to thrive as one. A family is an economic unit. It's an economic engine driving down a superhighway. The stronger they are, the stronger the society is. And for all the bitching and moaning about how birth rates are down and people aren't having kids anymore, and is it because there's too much screen time and all this, it's a lot of this has to do with dollars and cents. And what could be a better example than this? I have some more. Anything?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so let's take a look at giving birth around the world. The reverse birth tourists. U.S. women seek cheaper countries to have babies. Now, this was amid the pandemic. This was written August of 2020. Sorry about that. I should have enlarged that. But this gives you an idea of some stories of birthing tourism, as they say. So, Sarah Samaranos, 31, marketing professional, went to France to have her baby. On giving birth abroad in the U.S., I was living paycheck to paycheck. I was tired and I felt cheated. I had put in all this hard work. I finished my education like I was told to, put the hours in. I'm getting all this praise from my supervisors. So why is nothing moving? So I applied for a master's program in marketing in France. That's where I met my husband, a Frenchman from Normandy. When it came time to deliver my twins, we ended up having to go to the emergency room because something just felt off. I still had this really American fear of costs and was mentally doing the tally. Even as I'm in labor, the entire time I'm thinking, okay, they've given me this medicine, add it to the bill. I had an emergency C-section, add it to the bill. I needed a bag of blood, add it to the bill. I also needed a private room, three square meals, blah, blah, blah. We don't have to itemize everything. When it was time to leave the hospital, I told my husband, you go into the office and look at the bill. In my head, I was expecting to pay thousands of euros and was bracing for the impact. And then he walked in, and 30 seconds later, he walked out. And I asked him, okay, how much was it? He says, darling, this is France. Get in the taxi. Total cost of childbirth, $0. Antonia Murphy.
Not even a citizen.
Not even A citizen, that's right. Antonia Murphy, 45, NGO director and writer, went to New Zealand to have her baby. Countries where the social welfare states see this as an investment in their future. When I met my husband, we decided to try living abroad. We chose New Zealand because of its social safety net, decent public schools, and subsidized childcare. I showed up to New Zealand pregnant with my first child, and I was able to get midwife care. She came to my house throughout my pregnancy, supported me in a home birth, and when there were complications, accompanied me while I was transferred to a hospital. At that time, I was on a tourist visa, so not even a permanent resident, so we were responsible for the costs. When I had my other two children, we were residents, and so all the costs were covered by the healthcare system. So, full retail cost out of pocket for that first child, $3,550. That's out-of-pocket cost as a mother on a tourist visa, less than 10% what this woman paid. Total cost for that second...
And she got to do the Lord of the Rings tour for that.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Total cost for the second and third child, $0. Yolanda Munoz, 39, doctoral candidate in architecture and researcher, Chile. So we're not just talking about Europe, New Zealand, Chile. I'm Peruvian, and I came to Chile to study for a master's in architecture. Now I'm doing a PhD. My husband is an American musician in an orchestra. He wanted to travel internationally, and then after 5 years ago, back to the United States. Her out-of-pocket cost for delivery, including a C-section and a 4-day hospital stay in Chile, $350. And what was the cost of her premium health insurance plan? $195 per month. So that's not even using the government system. That's going private. That's the luxury experience. Michelle Bradford, 44, International Development Program Director at Turkey. I don't understand how people function in America. Both Americans and Turks automatically assumed I would go back to America to give birth. There's this idea that everything is better in America, that healthcare is better. I just don't perceive it that way. I saw going back to the States to have a baby as expensive. I've had 2 spine surgeries at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York. The first cost me more than $100,000, and the second, $93,000. Women in America are also discharged almost immediately. It's a systemic problem. And because I'm an older mom, I just didn't see why I would go to a subpar medical system that doesn't prioritize me and would kick me out of the hospital right away. I don't understand how people function in America. So she had no government insurance in Turkey. She had to pay full retail. Total cost of emergency C-section at a private hospital, including 5 days in a private room, $4,000. That's full retail. No insurance, no government plan, no nothing. Full retail, $4,000. $4,000. And people wonder why the Luigi Mangione musical is sold out. That's right. The run in San Francisco, I believe, starting in mid-June, is sold out. Now, I understand this is a very existential play. It's kind of like Waiting for Godot. It's about a guy who doesn't do anything, who just sits at McDonald's minding his own business, and one day the feds come and they arrest him for something he didn't do. So it's not what you think it is. It's not a big flash musical.
It's very Hitchcock.
It's very Hitchcock. It's about a guy who didn't do anything, who's in the wrong place at the wrong time. But this will explain why that's as popular as it is.
Well, this really demonstrates very clearly why the entire system is designed to keep us fighting each other about nonsense. We covered a lot of the kind of racial tension this past week, but always with the caveat, yeah, man, I think it's being driven by 3-letter agencies. I think they want us arguing about everything except the people who are actually destroying the lives of the average citizen. Look at a graph. Is it a person of especially if you're white, is it a person of another race that's stolen the future from you? Like, do you see an enormous spike in their income, an enormous drop in yours? No, you know who you see that with? The rich.
Right.
The upper 1%. Shoo, they take off. Your fortunes collapse. It's as obvious as it could be. They need you to be obsessed with cultural signaling so that you don't ask for anything else, and so that you never blame them for the fact that you live in a country so barbaric that if you have a baby, it could put you in debt for the rest of that child's life. You could be in debt for life. You talk about that woman talked about her spinal surgeries, $200,000 for the average person. You know what that is? That's debt for life.
Yep.
That's debt for the rest of your life. No other country is like this. This country is not a shithole because of each other. It's not a shithole because of people of other identities, of other races, whatever identity that is. It is a small cadre of very rich people who are robbing you blind. And at this point, I might want to cover this during the week. These computer scientists got exonerated for doing this study. But as is very often the case when people do unethical studies, everyone wants to look at the data. You know, it's terrible that you locked a child in a basement for 10 years, but we really want to study the linguistic abilities now of that child. Everyone's very curious about this AI study they did, where they actually went online and had fake AI bots tune into the personality, the age, the sex of people, and just generate comments. And they actually found they were able to persuade people of things with these AI bots. Now, I see something like that. I say, those scientists are way behind. If they're just figuring it out, the Pentagon gets $1 trillion, man. You think they're not doing it? You think these agencies are not doing it? What you're just catching on to? I think a lot of the conversation is just designed to keep us all in a panopticon where we're going to accuse each other of making this country miserable in order that the Elons, the Bezoses, the Gateses, the Trumps, they could just run off with their money unimpeded while we're down in the mud fighting over nonsense.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And the rapaciousness of this, it lies in the hospital management, it lies in the medical device industries, and of course, big pharma. The staffers don't get paid all that well. Nurses have to threaten to go on strike just about every year. Nurses unions are picketing. We always see that in the news.
Right.
Nurses not getting paid enough. Lactation consultants, that's what my wife does for a living, don't get paid terribly well.
Right. That's
doctors,
why they have to tell you these constant horror stories.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so terrible overseas. Whenever this comes up, you get all the chuds will be all over you. And in a way, I mean, to be sympathetic, they're brainwashed, man. They're brainwashed. And social media, in the end, has been the greatest tool of just rotting people's brains with ridiculous propaganda ever invented, because you get the dopamine hit off getting those likes, right? And increasingly, it looks like a lot of those likes, not even freaking people, man. It's robots reinforcing you to not say, why does this country uniquely in all the world bankrupt people for getting sick?
Well, yeah, and like I said, you know, the workers themselves are not making out. It's the hospitals, it's the medical devices, it's the pharmaceutical companies. You know, we talked about nurses, lactation people. Doctors do well. They're not terribly wealthy. They live upper middle class lives. Some of them, you know, you would consider, you know, I knew some doctors when I was a kid in school. Some of them lived in like little McMansions and stuff, which is good money, but they're not oligarchs. Right. They're not the ones doing this. This level of profiteering is just absolutely diabolical, and it affects everybody's life, whether you get fleeced or not. What jumped out to me about this story, she's sitting in the hospital in France. Every time they do something, she's like, oh, how much is that going to cost? How much is that going to cost? Right. So it's not just the act of getting fleeced that, you know, fucks your life up. It's to have to live in constant fear of getting fleeced, the constant anxiety that you're going to get ripped off. It's like when you take your dog to the vet, you know, every little thing they do, you're like, okay, please don't do that. No, I'll do that. Oh, do you want her to get her nails cut? No, I'll cut her nails, because you're going to charge me, what, $50 to cut the fucking dog's nails, right? No, I'll do it. I'll do it. You take a urine sample, they go to wipe her pussy off. No, don't wipe her pussy. I'll wipe the dog's pussy. Thank you. You can charge me $60 to wipe my dog's pussy. Like, every little thing is nickel and dimed.
The viewer numbers just went down.
Exactly.
Yes, and it also makes the population nasty. It
Yes,
makes the
of
population
course.
nasty.
Bitter, on edge, ready to fight all the time.
Constantly ready to fight. I told that story when I was in Italy, coming out of Pompeii, because I wanted to stay there every last minute, and I stayed so long I was going to miss my train back to Rome. And I call up. It's 10 minutes before my train goes out, and they don't even speak English. They have to go around and find somebody who can speak English. By the time they get somebody, it's about 5 minutes before my train leaves. As an American, I'm already assuming that my money's gone and I'm going to have to buy another ticket, and I'm going to have to go through some kind of bureaucracy. Maybe they won't even let me on the next train, because in America, they do shit like that to you. No, you can't go out until tomorrow morning.
Right.
I'm expecting that. Dude, they didn't even charge me. They put me on the next train. No problem. No, not even a fee, not even a cancellation fee. It's a small thing, but it says so much that as an American, I was stunned by that.
Yeah.
I just assumed I'm going to get fucked. And when you have a whole population that thinks like that, it makes them very guarded, suspicious. And when you go through the world guarded and suspicious, it puts you on a hair trigger. It makes it very easy to trigger conflict between people.
Yes. No, absolutely. Absolutely. That is why that explains a lot of why we are on edge as we are. And, this is a deeper conversation for a different time, but I think that explains why we are as violent a country as we are. People are just at a level 9. Like, our baseline stress level is at 9, in one fucking thing. And yeah, it's a very dangerous. I mean, it really does. I think that is a major factor. All right, let's move on to some super chats and some Rumble rants. Thanks everybody for being here tonight. Got a great crowd in here. 1,800 strong in the YouTube chat to start things off. 835 strong on Rumble. Q&A after the show tonight. Remember that, folks. We'll see you over on Rumble for that. Phoenix Azul, thanks for the $9.99. Came in early. If sex work isn't like other work, does that mean we don't deserve rights like other workers? No, not at all.
No. Oh, no.
Do we not deserve the same space in the labor movement, the same agency, solidarity, and compassion?
Is this our friend?
Yeah, this is our friend. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I am not for criminalization. I've said that before. I'm not for criminalization. So I don't think we really have a disagreement there. We have more of a philosophical disagreement. I think the argument it's like other kinds of work is disingenuous, because it isn't. You can say you think it is, but it isn't. And that is why you cannot build into an employment contract blowjobs as a requirement for employment. And I think to argue, well, you should be able to, I think most feminists would really take exception with the idea that at that point you'd be dismantling most of the laws that women have been fighting for literally for generations to protect them from that kind of predation. Also, to pretend because you are an attractive, reasonably educated white woman, this is a choice for you, that it's a choice in general, is also disingenuous when you look at most people who wind up in that industry. So you have to think about what kind of damage you are doing to people who are not yourself, who are not in your position of being able to pick and choose that kind of occupation, who are forced into it by economic or social circumstances. What normalizing that or pretending it's just like any other work is how that is impacting those people who constitute the vast majority of people who do that as a profession.
Yeah, I mean, I think, obviously, yes, agency, solidarity, compassion. Yeah, obviously, 100%. I'm
Sure.
for all that. I'm for all that.
Yeah, I still don't think it should be against the law.
Yeah, no, and I think people should be supported, and yes, I'm
That
for worker
just forces
solidarity
it
across
underground.
across the board. Yeah, it was once the case. It's not the case anymore. It's not the case anymore. Perhaps because it has been normalized to some extent. Okay, and like I said, I'm not really against that. But it was once the case that the average age of a prostitute in New York City was an underage person. In other words, the average age was
right.
So there is, I would say, there has been historically disproportionate exploitation in that industry. And I think the way some on the left talk about this, I think the discourse surrounding it whitewashes a lot of that exploitation and sort of erases that from the conversation.
And I also,
yeah, I mean, on the points, like, yeah, absolutely. The same agency, solidarity, and compassion. Yes, of course, obviously.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, nobody's arguing against that.
Yeah.
I would say the left made a wrong turn when it turned from going out to try to help the kinds of women I am describing, who would be much more the usual, who are in that because they don't have any economic or social choices. And that was social justice, right? You went out to try to help those women. You tried to give them shelter, tried to give them other choices. You know, as Michael Parenti has written about at length and many others, it was quite intentional on the part of intelligence agencies and different organizations working through them to turn the left into something that would be repulsive to most of the public. So you take a left that's going out and trying to help women who are in a terrible situation, and you turn it into a left that's going around and trying to pretend that situation isn't terrible. Hello, Trump.
Right.
You know, I mean, you make the conservative arguments look a lot better when that's what you say the left represents, prostitution.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think, I mean, thankfully, maybe now, because, like I said, it has been normalized to an extent. A lot of people who do that don't have the kind of terrible time that was once the norm in that industry, and still is to, I think, a bigger extent than people want to admit. So
if you're talking about it as a worldwide thing, we're not, we're not just, again, I mean, when I see people making this argument, they're almost always white, they're almost always attractive, and they're almost always fairly educated.
Right. And in which case, if that's a choice you make, then that's fine. That's great.
Right.
Like, I have no ill will towards you whatsoever.
That's your business.
Yeah. No
but to try to make it
whatsoever.
out that you're the norm, I'm sorry, that's very self-absorbed, and it's not realistic.
Bike Bison, thanks for the $100. Let's have a digital cowbell for Bike Bison over here. Thank you very much. That's a great donation, Bike Bison. Thanks for that very much. Can you elaborate a bit on your political and economic beliefs? Well, I think that's mostly what we do here, Bike Bison, but we could do it some more for you. Do you support, for example, nationalization of big companies or workers owning the means of production? Big fan. Keep up the great work. Ideally, I'm for worker ownership. I'm a bit of an anarchist in that way. I would rather have workers own the means of production than just, an across-the-board nationalization. That's me. That's ideal. But, realistically, look, we're not getting any of that. This is why I don't generally, maybe this is why you asked, because I don't generally have, theoretical conversations with that kind of macro philosophical framing, because we're not getting any of that. And if we did get any of that, we would have it for a while and then we'd lose it, because systems grow, systems decline, systems die, systems are disrupted and overthrown. So yeah, I mean, ultimately, yes, I do believe in workers taking ownership of their labor with as little supervision from the states as you would imagine it in current context as possible. I hope that was worth it. I hope you like that answer. You sure gave us a generous donation, so I hope I did okay for you. But thank you.
Who is John Galt, motherfucker?
Yeah, right.
And
exactly.
Randian capitalist Superman.
Yeah.
That's my politics, baby.
That's right. Matt Gale, thanks for the $4.99. Matan just did a podcast with Matt Gaetz. Please watch for your enjoyment, and if you do a segment on it, I'll send $25. Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, you probably don't. I mean, you're welcome to send $25. I'm not going to say no, but that does sound funny. Matan is great. That kid is really funny. Really funny. You ever watch that kid? He's like a teenager. He's like 18, 19 years old. Matan, what's his last name? I forget his name. He does podcasts on like a tent. He does like Borat style interviews, but it's like the guest knows they're in for like a Borat style interview when they come. Kurt was on. Kurt Metzger did a great show with him. I mean, that was hilarious. So yeah, that would be pretty funny actually. I would love to watch that and probably enjoy doing a segment about that, because yeah, he is great. Noah Goop, 3 minutes late. Unsub. Thank you, Noah Goop. Appreciate that. Witshigo, the land of the free and the home of the slave. Thank you, Witshigo. Appreciate that. So you're saying it's just cheaper to get with a woman with a penis. Thank you, Eric Russo. Appreciate that. That's right. Just like Russell and Pompeii with the train, I assume I'm going to be fucked. However, I'm wrong. And the only thing getting smashed around here is the like button. Never mind. Thank you, Furrows Queen. Appreciate that. I. Thanks for the $10. Appreciate it. Super sticker. All right, let's move on, shall we? By the way, round of applause for Jake in the booth tonight. Jake is here. Round of applause for him in the chat, please. China.
Good news, everyone. Our crops are saved. After a weekend of intense negotiation and reportedly, in order of Peking duck, Scott Bessent came out and claimed that everything is solved now.
Happy to report that we made substantial progress between the United States and China in these very important trade talks. First, I want to thank our Swiss host. The Swiss government has been very kind in providing us this wonderful venue, and I think that led to a great deal of the productivity we've seen. We will be giving details tomorrow, but I can tell you that the talks were productive.
Productive is the word. All right, I'm definitely having some problems with lag on my exhibits. Hang on. There we go. All right, so this is Jameson Greer, U.S. Trade Representative. I think that means he's Howard Lutnick's crafty minion. He's busy sacrificing animals to his dark gods this weekend. But this is what he had to say.
As the Secretary pointed out, a very constructive 2 days. It's important to understand how quickly we were able to come to agreement, which reflects that perhaps the differences were not so large as maybe thought. That being said, there was a lot of groundwork that went into these 2 days. Just remember why we're here in the first place is the United States has a massive $1.2 trillion trade deficit. So the president declared a national emergency and imposed tariffs. And we're confident that the deal we struck with our Chinese partners will help us to work toward resolving that national emergency.
Okay, so they say they struck a deal. There is some skepticism out there. We're just going to report it. I'm not saying they're right one way or the other. We won't know until tomorrow. Chris Murphy says there is no deal. There is nothing approximating a deal. They just make things up constantly. And the Tennessee Holler here threw this up. Left, Trump says they've agreed to a trade deal with China. Right, China says they've reached an agreement to talk more. So this is China state press. The high-level economic and trade talks between China and the U.S. in Geneva were candid, in-depth, and constructive, He Lifeng, vice premier of the state council, said. Both sides have reached an agreement on establishing a China-U.S. economic and trade consultation mechanism and will conduct further consultations on issues of mutual concern. Now, that does not sound like a deal. That sounds like a deal to keep talking about a deal. But, hey, that could just be they mentioned that part of it, but there is a deal, and part of the deal is that they set up a mechanism so that they don't get into another trade war. It's possible. No one can really say until tomorrow. But hey, setting the bar high here. Donald J. Trump. My next truth will be one of the most important and impactful I have ever issued. Enjoy! So, hey, we'll see. We'll see. Everybody's waiting on that.
Yeah.
So earlier in the week, Trump struck the first of these big trade deals with the UK, and the Oval Office conference had a few gems. CNN reports here, Trump floats 100% tariff on Barbies, while his UK trade deal shields super luxury cars like Rolls-Royce, but that might be why they offered him a discount on one. So here he is, and some very smart people are saying this might be what scared China into negotiating, because he made some very serious threats against the country of Mattel.
Mattel, I don't know. I'm not so sure. They also said they're the only country I've heard. They said, well, we're going to go counter. We're going to try going someplace else. That's okay. Let him go, and we'll put 100% tariff on his toys, and he won't sell one toy in the United States, and that's their biggest market. I heard that. I mean, I watched this guy talking about how I'm going to go counter. I said, well, I wouldn't want to have him as an executive too long.
Yeah. So next, reportedly, Trump is considering annexing the country of Mattel. But Mattel claimed it's impossible for them to profitably manufacture their toys in the U.S., so they might have to go someplace else. And he's saying, well, you go someplace else, you get 100% tariff if you try to sell your Barbies to the United States. He went on a long monologue about how the girls have too many dolls. But here he is talking broadly about his future trade policy and his feelings about Rolls-Royce.
The template of 10 is probably the lowest end, and therefore they made that deal. But they we've had just a very special relationship with them. Like, I won't do that deal with cars. I mean, unless somebody shows me that there's another kind of a car that's comparable to a Rolls-Royce, then there aren't too many. This is a good commercial for Rolls-Royce. I'm going to order a lot of cars.
Mr. President, I wonder whether you'd like to buy.
Well, the last time this happened,
I would be happy to suggest a discount, obviously a very modest discount.
Last time this happened, they burned all the cars.
I've had many of them, actually. The last time that happened, I ended up buying a Tesla.
Yeah. So, hey, man, the British have had centuries of playing sultans and kings. They certainly know how to play to the ego of Donald J. Trump. That's what that sounded like there. But it's interesting. He's saying he wouldn't require Rolls-Royce to build a factory in the United States. It's too, as someplace else he said, it's too special a brand. He doesn't even see how that could be done. So I thought he thinks so much of American workers, but he doesn't seem to think they could build a Rolls-Royce. Could build one? China. So, hey, everyone was celebrating, but not so much in London. The London market was actually down after this deal was made. To be sure, the UK extracted some concessions, such as a lower tariff rate on its first 100,000 vehicles exported to the US, and securing new discussions for U.S. President Donald Trump's universal 25% levies on steel and aluminum imports. That said, the deal does seem more advantageous to the U.S., at least based on the fact that a 10% tariff will remain on all UK imports alongside other compromises allowed by Britain. The U.S. already runs a trade surplus with the UK, meaning that it exports more to the country than it imports. And a 10% tariff was what Trump slapped on the UK on April 2nd. So there was no reduction in those levies, despite both countries reaching an agreement. Quote, what we heard today is just noise for most UK imports. It doesn't affect the majority of products. Andy Abbott, CEO of niche ocean liner company Atlantic Container Line, told CNBC's Loury and Baraka. You've still got a 10% tariff, which Trump said in that Oval Office press conference is the minimum, because they've been very respectful to us. They've respected us, in his mafia Don way. Say, yeah, because they respected us, they can pay the lowest VIG. We're going to give them a special deal on the VIG, 10%. That's as low as we go. Nobody pays less than that. So they've still got a 10% tariff, which you know what that means. You're going to pay 10% more on your Beatles box sets from now on. I don't know what else we import from England. I guess if you want to get a Rolls-Royce, still going to be a little 10% increase on that. But for England, they didn't really get anything, right? I mean, he dropped the steel and the aluminum tariffs. England, from what I've read, they only import like 90,000 cars here anyway. So to cap it at 100,000 cars, you only pay the 10% tariff. That really didn't do anything for them. So that's why their market went down. Ours went up, although it's not clear to me what the advantage is to us other than that the entire nation is being held hostage to these tariffs, and there's just a certain amount of relief on the tariffs being lifted on steel and aluminum. That'll make it easier for our manufacturers, for our car companies in particular. But what did we get out of this? What did the American people get out of it other than they're going to pay a 10% tariff on British imported goods? Because they're not going to pay that. You're going to pay that. That is going to get passed on to you, the consumer. With China, who knows? One would imagine that China's not going to take that kind of a deal, nor would that kind of a deal be offered. So what are we talking about? Experts say 50%. The conventional wisdom is if you tariff 50% or above, there's no way to make importing and exporting profitable at that level. So anything 50% or above, and there's no meaningful deal. It would have to be below that. But even if they made it 40%, that's nothing to celebrate, given, as people are finding out, how much of everything we buy comes from China. Your sneakers, your clothes, your computers, your toys, everything is coming from China. I think toys, it's 90% are coming from China. So we will see tomorrow. But given the deal we made with England and given the noises coming from China, I wouldn't get my hopes up.
Yeah, that's obviously the much bigger question here and the much bigger factor here. And we'll just have to see. Obviously, you have some conflicting reports about this, and there's no way to know for sure now. But obviously, that's the much bigger and more consequential piece of this. And, we'll just have to see what happens. In terms of the follow-up to his Truth Social, he has since, just an hour ago, just as we went live, followed up that truth with something that actually, in a way, it's tariff. I mean, it's not tariff related, but it is a way of, in theory, transferring costs from one country to another. He's signing an executive order, apparently slashing pharmaceutical costs here by, he says, 30 to 80%, which would, of course, mean that in what he's saying is that these pharmaceutical companies will charge more in other countries because Americans are the suckers, which. Look, I mean, he's right about that. Like, what that last segment showed is that the reason these pharmaceutical companies get so rich...
Is that the most important truth of all time?
I guess that's the most important one of all time. I guess that's his most consequential truth ever. Yeah. Yeah. But it is true. Like, the reason why they are able to, charge so little overseas is because they fleece us. Like, we are such a cash cow for these companies. So there is truth to that. We'll have to see, how it shakes out.
Do you have that truth?
No, I just looked it up on my phone, so I don't have it here. But yeah,
I'm pulling it up.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, this is important. For many years, the world has wondered why prescription drugs and pharmaceuticals in the United States of America were so much higher in price than they were in any other nation, sometimes being 5 to 10 times more expensive than the same drug manufactured in the exact same laboratory or plant by the same company. It was always difficult to explain and very embarrassing because, in fact, there was no correct or rightful answer. The pharmaceutical drug companies would say for years that it was research and development costs, and that all of these costs were and would be, for no reason whatsoever, borne by the suckers of America alone. Campaign contributions can do wonders, but not with me. And not with the Republican Party. That's news to Miriam Adelson. We are going to do the right thing, something that the Democrats have fought for many years. Therefore, I am pleased to announce that tomorrow morning in the White House at 9 a.m., I will be signing one of the most consequential executive orders in our country's history. Prescription drug and pharmaceutical prices will be reduced almost immediately by 30 to 80%. They will rise throughout the world in order to equalize and for the first time in many years, bring fairness to America. I will be instituting a most favored nations policy whereby the United States will pay the same price as the nation that pays the lowest price anywhere in the world. Our country, well, if you're going to do that, yeah, it's going to cut it by 80 to 90%. Our country will finally be treated fairly, and our citizens' healthcare costs will be reduced by numbers never even thought of before. Additionally, on top of everything else, the United States will save trillions of dollars. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again. Can you do that with the stroke of a pen?
Yeah, well, that's why I said. I mean, I just wanted to mention that it wasn't a tariff, but yeah, who knows? I mean, we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. All right, let's go to Farhaj Hassan. Says Hardlands Media in the house. Hi, Keaton. Hi, Russell. Hi there. Hi there. And yes, shout out to Hardlands in the chat. Gareth Richmond, Polish bar. Where's the Zabroka? You know, I lived in Greenpoint for a few years. The Zuwick, not the IPA, but the lager. That's what the homeless guys used to drink in McGolrick Park. Used to see a lot of those cans and bottles laying around every morning. Jack Jenkins, thanks for the $4.99. Appreciate that very much. Kenman says, thinking of you today, Mom. Missing you. Rest in peace. Rest in peace, Kenman's mother. That's very sweet of you to say. Shotgun Wiley, did I hear you're a Cumtown fan, Keaton? The boys making a skit about Ben Shapiro being molested by Mr. Feeney from Boy Meets World is hilarious. I haven't heard that one. I haven't heard most of their stuff. Like yes, I am a fan of those guys, but I discovered it late in the run, so there's a lot that I have not listened to. So yes, thanks for that. Their stuff surfaces on YouTube every once in a while, and yes, those guys are quite hilarious. Join the American Communist Party at acp.us. Join. Happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day, Master Yoda. Vito P says it's Vito P. Happy Mother's Day to all of you mothers. Cancer sucks. You guys rock. You rock, Vito P. Thank you very much for that donation, my friend. Appreciate it. Free Shit 77 says, sorry to Misty, a little cryptic in my rant to massage my ego for $1. All right, well, we'll pass that word along. Misty Winston Show debuted last week, Wednesday, 7 p.m. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, including you. Free Shit 77. China Shell says YouTube Shorts creator Melissa in China recorded her entire pregnancy in China, and it cost her about $1,300 for the delivery as an uninsured foreigner. Yeah, no, I believe it. I believe that. S. Jera, thanks for the 99 cents. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, that's the side where I'm like, aside from the obvious that the country looks like it's on the verge of total collapse, I don't know that I would buy a house here because, I mean, you get sick, they take it.
Yeah, they take it. Exactly.
They take it,
Exactly.
Like, do you really want to be invested in this country?
Right. Yeah, no, 100%. 100%. Okay, why don't we move right on along here? Okay, folks, so we've sensed, kind of a sea change around the Israel-Palestine issue in public opinion. I think I don't want to say we've turned the corner because we've turned corners before, but between the boycott bill failing and student protesters being released, there has been some in the way of good signs over the past week or so. And this is, of course, one of those here. Sorry about that. Tufts University student Rumeza Ozturk returns to Massachusetts after being released on bail. So she has been freed now, and her court will be heard. I mean, her case will be heard with her at home and not in jail, which is a good sign. Rumeza Ozturk, a 30-year-old Turkish doctoral candidate at Boston's Tufts University who was detained by Immigration and Customs Enforcement back in March, returned to Massachusetts on Saturday after a judge ordered she be released. Ozturk spoke at a news conference Boston Logan International Airport Saturday evening alongside Democratic Senator Ed Markey and Democratic Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. During the Friday hearing, Ozturk and her lawyers argued that her due process and First Amendment rights were violated when she was taken into custody by plainclothes ICE officers in March. U.S. District Judge William Sessions presided over the case and said that the Trump administration had not provided any evidence for her detainment besides an op-ed she co-authored in the Tufts student newspaper last year. The op-ed centered Israel's war with Hamas. That's not really true. The op-ed was specifically about Tufts University divesting from Israel, and it called for them to take up a resolution passed by the student body or whatever the hell it was. But it was a very, very procedural op-ed. It wasn't even so much philosophical or even political in that sense in the way that they're framing it. Certainly no mention of terrorism or Hamas or anything. It was just completely absurd that was enough to put her on their radar. The only reason she was put on their radar is because groups like Batar and Canary Mission clearly are keeping a list of pro-Palestine activists, and we did a segment on this a while back. There's actually a field that you fill out when you are outing a pro-Palestine organizer. There's a field where you check their immigration status. So it's clear that the government is getting a list from these types of organizations and that she was on it, because the evidence was non-existent. No evidence whatsoever of not even like, sympathy for like terrorism or anything, not even evidence of anti-Semitism, as we'll get to. The Trump administration has said that piece was the main reason her student visa was revoked. During the hearing, one of her attorneys said that allowing her to remain in custody proves that you can be detained thousands of miles from your home for more than 6 weeks for writing a single news article. Ozturk does not have a criminal record, and there is no record of her engaging or encouraging violence, Sessions said. So this is the op-ed. Try again, President Kumar, renewing calls for Tufts to adopt March 4th TCU Senate resolutions. Right? So it was some, piece of writing that was passed through the student body that, they wanted the university to take up. This was as benign as it gets. I encourage you to read it. Just Google Tufts Daily Rumesa Ozturk. You can read the whole thing. It's too boring for us to read. Like, it would take 6 or 7 minutes, and I don't want to bore you for 7 minutes to prove a point that there's nothing in here that even resembles the kinds of evidence that they claim to have, even though, of course, the Washington Post had an exclusive on this. We did a whole segment on this. The Washington Post found no evidence linking Tufts student to anti-Semitism or terrorism. State Department office found. So no evidence against her whatsoever. They did it anyway. So, obviously, Frankie here says a judge has decided to release Tufts Uni doctoral student Rumesa Ozturk from ICE custody after her visa was revoked by the government. Caroline Levitt on the judge ordering. So here is the White House press secretary responding to this.
The Department of Homeland Security on that particular case, but I think our overall feeling, we've made quite clear that lower level judges should not be dictating the foreign policy of the United States, and we absolutely believe that the President and the Department of Homeland Security are well within their legal rights to deport illegal immigrants. As for visa revocations, the Secretary of State has the right to do that as well. It is a privilege, not a right, to come to this country on a visa.
Okay, so they are sticking with that line. Pretty incredible. So here's a tweet of Rumesa Ozturk outside of the facility thanking some supporters who showed up to cheer her release.
Love you! Thank you so much for all the support and love. I am a little bit tired, so I will take some rest, but I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for all the support and love. Thank you so much for all the support. I love you. Thank you so much.
Safe travels home.
Wow.
How long was she in the joint? A month?
I think about 6 weeks. What was that, third week of March? So yeah, about 6 weeks. 6 weeks in jail. I mean, look at her. She's like a sweet. I mean, as non-threatening as a person could be.
Thank you so much for all the support and love. I am a little bit tired, so I will take some rest, but I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for all the support and love. Thank you so much for all the support.
So when she got to Massachusetts, obviously she made a speech here. Rumesa Ozturk, 30-year-old Turkish doctoral student at Tufts, calls the United States the greatest democracy in the world and says she has faith in the American justice system. Let's take a listen to this.
Case in the courts. I will continue my case in the courts. I came to United States to pursue my graduate studies, learn and grow as a scholar, and also to contribute to child development fields with my teaching, research, and applied work. America is the greatest democracy in the world, and I believe in those values that we share. I have faith in the American system of justice. This has been a very difficult time for me, for my community at Tufts, at Turkey, but I'm so grateful for all the support, kindness, and care. My advisor sent me my dissertation proposal to the prison. My lab mates have been reading me books on the phone that are very old. And my department professor students have sent me so many letters of support, so many supports, so much love and comforting words. My union organized on behalf of me and other international students with so much effort, love, and care. I had so many lovely people sending me letters, comforting words again. So thank you all. And finally, I will also remind one more time, please don't forget about all these wonderful women in the immigration detention systems. I was so tired of witnessing cries and pain that can be all preventable. Thank you.
So, one thing that jumps out is her, expression of faith in the American system, despite everything that the system has put her through. But she's not unique in that respect. So Mohsen Madawi, who was the Columbia student who was detained and he was released last week, he wrote an op-ed that was printed in the New York Times. I was detained for my beliefs. Who will be next? Now, originally, this op-ed was titled based on this passage here. Despite spending 16 months in a jail cell, I never lost hope. 16 nights, that's what I said, right? Despite spending
7 months.
Oh, sorry. Despite spending 16 nights in a jail cell, I never lost hope in the inevitability of justice and the principles of democracy. I wanted to become a citizen of this country because I believe in the principles that it enshrines. When Judge Jeffrey Crawford ruled in my favor, he reassured me, along with the American people, that there is still reason to hope in those principles. But the road to justice is long. My freedom is intertwined with the freedom of the other students who exercise the same free speech rights as I did, yet languish in jail, and is intertwined with that of the Palestinians who are fighting for their right to life and justice, too. And let's not forget, Mahmoud Khalil, still in jail, missed the birth of his newborn son a few weeks ago, and printed this op-ed in The Guardian out, I believe this was either yesterday or today. This is hot off the press. To my newborn son, I am absent, not out of apathy, but conviction. So he writes, Dean, that's his newborn. My heart aches that I could not hold you in my arms and hear your first cry, that I could not unfurl your clenched fists or change your first diaper. I am sorry that I was not there to hold your mother's hand or recite the Adhan or call to prayer in your ear. But my absence is not unique. Like other Palestinian fathers, I was separated from you, by racist regimes and distant prisons. In Palestine, this pain is part of daily life. Babies are born every day without their fathers, not because their fathers chose to leave, but because they are taken by war, by bombs, by prison cells, and by the cold machinery of occupation. The grief your mother and I feel is but one drop in a sea of sorrow that Palestinian families have drowned in for generations. And this is a picture that Mahmoud's wife submitted to The Guardian for publication. She cropped the baby's face out of the image for safety reasons, of course, but this was sent to The Guardian. Beautiful little baby girl holding a picture of her mom and dad. And so while we have two wins on the board here in terms of Madawi and Ozturk being freed, we still have a man who is not here on a visa, but here on a green card, a permanent legal resident, a man with every right to call this country his home, is in jail for expressing an opinion. I want to repeat that. A man who has every right to call this country with an enshrined First Amendment his home is in jail for having expressed the wrong opinion according to the United States government. And yet, despite this, we still have the first two people in the segment, these two protesters, Ozturk and Madawi, expressing this faith in the system. A mutual friend of ours, I won't say his name, although he's not a shy guy. He's been on the show a few times, who is a mutual friend of ours. He's from India, but I believe his parents were Muslim. So he comes from a Muslim background. I don't know if he's practicing. I don't think he is. But he texted me the Madawi op-ed, and he says, he said to me, he says, you know, Muslims and Arabs are the last people to give up on this country, no matter how much this country beats up on them. Like, even the MAGA people will become disillusioned with America before the Muslims and the Arabs do. He says he doesn't understand it. He texted me. He loved the piece that we did where we talked about, hey, you know, if I were Mahmoud, I would tell the government, you know what? Let me out. I'll leave. Let's not bother. Go find a place that treats you better. He seems to agree with me on that, but he says there's something about the Muslim and Arab community that feels a sense of hope in this place, despite the fact that we abuse them over and over and over again, both around the world and here at home. You know, and this is something like, you know, growing up, I grew up in a very diverse area. It was a third brown, a third black, a third white was the school district I went to. There were a lot of Arab and Muslim kids in my school. I remember being in junior high after 9/11. The shit they dealt with, they took it in stride, man. They didn't fight back. They turned the other cheek. They're very humble, and I don't know what it is in them, but they have faith in this country that I certainly don't, and I don't know how to explain that. I admire it in a certain sense. I think it's admirable. I think it's kind of noble, but it's not something I share, to be honest. If I were these guys, I would say, you know what? I'm not welcome here. See ya. Fuck you.
I don't know how universal that is. I worked for many years with Turkish fellow carriage drivers, and a lot of things I must say that I believe now, as a matter of course, I heard first from them. Like the idea that, because I was actually working that job during the Iraq War, and they were saying they are not doing this so badly by accident. They want the Middle East to be completely dysfunctional. They want everybody fighting each other. This is the plan. They never wanted that to be a functional state. They don't want these places to be strong. And I thought that was very conspiratorial. Now, of course, I'm like, yeah, of course. But my politics were much more New York Timesy back then. So they certainly didn't think that way. Like they were pretty skeptical.
Oh yeah, no, look,
of the United
States
that, yeah. Foreign policy and its motives. I think you see that with some people. I don't know. I don't know if you could even get honest polling on that, on what the percentage would be, because people would be afraid to answer it honestly, probably. My experience was, I got to say, man, none of the guys I worked with had a positive attitude towards America. And I used to say to them, well, so what are you doing here? They would say, well, because of the way that America has rigged the world economy, you have to come here for the money. They didn't want to be here. They hated it here.
It's funny in that vein, when back when we were Democrats, it was 2006, and I was, 19 at the time? Yeah, we were campaigning for John Hall, who was running for Congress against the incumbent Republican in the district that's currently, I forget who represents it now. They redrew it anyway. Anyway, that doesn't matter. Point is, you know, like I said, I've been somewhat of a 9/11 truther since 2002. When I was a kid, I figured out, hey, you know, if they're lying about Iraq, that must mean they're lying about 9/11 because 9/11 is the excuse to go to Iraq. So it just makes logical sense that 9/11.
Yeah,
is
man, those guys, I wouldn't say they all believed this, but a good number
yeah.
of them believed that Osama bin Laden was an actor working for the CIA.
Well,
like
my
a lot of them
father,
believe that.
I started talking to my father about that, and he didn't really believe it, But I guess I bothered him enough about it to the point where when he was canvassing, we were canvassing in the parking lot of a Walmart, and he goes up to this Arab and Muslim guy, and they start talking about the Iraq War because the 2006 midterms are very much a referendum on that.
Right.
And so he was asking about what he thinks about the Iraq War and blah blah blah. They get to talking, and so my dad says, a lot of people. He didn't say his son. He says, a lot of people, seem to think that 9/11. That the government may have been behind 9/11, and that was the pretext for all this. And the guy laughs. The guy says, "Of course they did 9/11."
Right?
Like he was like, "Yeah, of course, obviously."
Yeah.
Like he was like, you're
yeah.
getting super close to me and saying this like it's some secret."
Right.
The Arab
right.
guy's
So,
like, "Yeah, of course they did it. What are you stupid?"
Yeah, so I wouldn't buy that the Arab or Muslim community uniquely have faith in America. I think just like all immigrant groups from countries where the economy and the politics in many respects are even worse, some of them wind up still seeing America as this land of opportunity compared to where they came from.
Right.
So you'll see that in all immigrant communities, but I don't know if it's on the whole. I would say probably in theory, if you really got Muslims, to be honest with you, probably less of them think that than other immigrant groups that come here, if I had to guess, because of their unique experience with our tender mercies in their lands.
Could be. I mean, could be. But I do notice, like, yeah, man, like, for these kids to come out of this hopeful, maybe it's a reflection of the fact that, like, they're educated. So maybe they like this crop has made a bigger investment in America than horse and carriage drivers because they're more blue collar. Yeah, we're just here to get paid. Whereas, when you go to an Ivy League university,
well,
like
those guys were all on student visas. They were all.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, this is why, like, those student protests were such a threat, and this is why they had to crack down on them, especially the Ivy League protests, Harvard, UPenn, Columbia, because those kids are the establishment of tomorrow. So they can't have those kinds of ideas, these pro-Palestine ideas, proliferate in those environments because they're the next CEOs, they're the next Congress people, they're the next governors, they're the next head of whatever foundations, spring up. And so maybe that has something to do with it. But for whatever reason, glad they are out of jail, and what they do next is up to them. But they're expressing a confidence in the system that is more than I can muster.
It's quite remarkable, and I will just say about Ozturk. My experience working with Turkish people is she really reminded me of how warm and humble they are as a people. They tend to be very kind, very generous, very hospitable, with a deep humility, qualities that we just don't have as a culture.
When my twins were born, my neighbors across the hall in our apartment building, they were Turkish. They cooked us food for like a month after my kids were born. They'd bring us 2 meals a day.
They're very nice people. They're very nice.
Yeah, 100%. The Amazing Blumpkin says, all our enemies were expensive 3-piece suits. Thank you, Amazing Blumpkin. Jay Bell says, big mad, it's $40K for a kid who'll get trans. Thank you, Jay Bell. Well, yeah, there's a lot of money in that too, obviously.
Yeah.
I'm surprised Trump isn't issuing an executive order on that. You're going to do the bottom surgeries on the cheap from now on. They're going to pass that off to France. Let the French pay if they want to transition. Why do we have to pay? That's a funny sketch. Trump negotiating trans surgery.
Well, he's already pretty much given the executive order to ban that for under 18s to begin with, hasn't he?
Did he? Yeah, but I'm talking about even for the adult surgeries. He should try to get those cheaper. Great news. Let MAGA celebrate that. Great news.
My next truth is going to be the most important truth concerning genitals I've ever written.
If you get the top surgery, you get the bottom half off within 6 months. There should be a package deal. You shouldn't have to pay full price for both. If you get both, you should get a discount. It's not fair. It's very unfair. Furrow Screen, will they hike up food tariffs in the UK? Tariffs on pickled herring. Oh, what the fuck are they thinking? Also, the gourmet food from our rich shares, they will regret it. Twirls mustache menacingly. I don't know what's going on with the food over here. Didn't they say that the FDA wasn't going to be inspecting the bag lettuce anymore? They're saying you shouldn't eat bag lettuce now because there's something is lax with the inspections for foodborne illness. And it's funny because I bought some bagged kale yesterday, and I cooked it up, and my stomach was in shambles last night. And it wasn't just me; it was Amanda's too. So it must have been something we ate. It could have been that bag lettuce. Could have been that bag lettuce. They got me sick. You can't get good lettuce anymore. Say what you want about Sleepy Joe. At least you can get a bag of kale and not shit your brains out all night. Yeah. Can't eat kale anymore.
At home, I usually get like the unbagged.
Yeah, you get it unbagged. Yeah, it's better to get it
here.
unbagged.
I've been getting like the containers.
Yeah. It's quicker to get it bagged. You don't have to wash it and chop it.
Exactly.
Shit.
Yeah.
Time is of the essence, as they say. Let's see here. Al Bukid, thanks for the $5. The administration will be doing this trade war against China regardless who won the White House. Project 2025 says we have to decouple from China in preparation for war with them. Thank you, Al Bukid. Appreciate that. John N., thanks for the $20. 25 years ago in Chicago, my girl was born in a Catholic hospital downtown with a view of Lake Michigan, pre and after care for 5 years at a doctor in yuppie neighborhood. $0. Baby mama was prepared with work and tax paperwork all in order and white. Well, if you are, I don't know what your situation is or was, but when we had our twins, we were on Medicaid. We paid nothing. We paid nothing because we were on a government healthcare system. And now, this guy is a different story, the new guy. But yeah, there is a stark difference depending on, income level and all that stuff. For sure, which there shouldn't be. That creates divisions amongst the working class too. Means-tested programs create a lot of divisions amongst workers. That's why they're there. That's what they're there for. You draw a line through the working class, and those just above it get fleeced, and those just below it get shit for free. And then the people who get fleeced resent the people who got it for free, even though they're generally of the same class position.
I am just gonna say, man. If he actually demonstrates, and this is a very big if, it's a very big if he actually demonstrates that with the stroke of a pen, he was able to do that to pharmaceutical prices, that really hurts the Democrats' odds in the midterms. Yeah. Because, at that point, the obvious next thing to run against them on is, you said you couldn't do this.
Right. Why
you said you couldn't do this. All these years, you talked about how complicated it was.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's yeah. So we will have to see.
We'll have to see if he can actually do that.
If that's actually possible. Yes. Okay. James Starks, thanks for the $5 super sticker. Appreciate that. All right. Why don't we move right on along to Newark, New Jersey.
All right. I've got this. We have our labels for these things. I call this one internally Deutschland in Newark.
Yeah.
Because that's what it looks
hang on.
like.
Before you start this one, sorry, with a little bit of bookkeeping to do. We are at 774 likes. And 2081 in the chat. All right. Sorry about that.
Okay. So, well, man, since we're stopped, I'll get the right music for this. All right. So this is a piece we're calling Deutschland in Newark. Deutschland, Deutschland, yeah, it was Deutschland goose stepping all over the place with those ICE agents this week. House Dems clash with police at ICE facility. Mayor arrested. The mayor of Newark was arrested Friday outside an immigration and customs enforcement facility where law enforcement scuffled with a group of protesters that included 3 House Democrats. The Department of Homeland Security is alleging the lawmakers stormed the facility, a characterization the lawmakers' offices are disputing. Footage of Newark Mayor Ras Baraka's arrest obtained by Axios shows a clash between law enforcement and a group of demonstrators, including Representatives Bonnie Watson-Coleman, Rob Menendez, and LaMonica McIver. The lawmakers said they were attempting to investigate ICE's controversial reopening of the Delaney Hall facility to house detained immigrants. Okay, so just a couple things to keep in mind. We've got a lot of video on this. Congress does have the right to do spot checks of facilities. They can just show up at a facility, a federal facility, as part of their congressional authority and duties, and do a spot check. Otherwise, if there's things that need to be hidden, if they have advance notice, they could hide them, right? So they were within their rights. The Trump administration is claiming that they blocked a bus, which they would kind of have to claim in order to assert any illegality about what they did, because the right of Congress ends at the impeding of executive functions. So that could theoretically be considered impeding the executive if you were impeding a busload of detainees. So let's kind of look blow by blow. This is very Rashomon. It's very difficult to see exactly what happened. Not there, at least the video is not all available of everything that was going on that day. But let's see how it started. This is this first one, Representative Bonnie Watson-Coleman, the older lady. She tweeted this out.
If we're not going in, you're in violation of federal law. And we will pursue. And you don't need to be at the end of that weekend. So either we'll see it or you'll...
All right, you see, so they're negotiating with the ICE officers to be let in. She's saying, if you don't let us in, you're in violation of federal law. Now, they ultimately did, I mean, they're on the other side of the fence here. So they did actually get let in. The altercation from the account seems to be they came back out to join the mayor. And when they tried to go back in, it seems like this is when everything went sideways.
We're here to conduct an oversight visit along with Congresswoman Bonnie Watson-Coleman, Rob Menendez. We're here conducting an oversight visit with the has the power to
All right, so you can see at first they are actually inside, and the press is outside. All right, so this is footage that has been going around where you can see Menendez really trying to, as I would interpret it, protect the Congresswoman, LaMonica McIver, who it looks like if they're going to try to charge anybody, which would be insane, but if it's anyone, they're really trying to argue that she got physical. So let's take a look, and we're going to see this from different angles. He's in the red jacket there. You can see Menendez there. Looks like it got pretty crazy. Now, this is what Department of Homeland Security put out in the effort to claim that they were rushing the facility. U.S. Congresswoman LaMonica McIver, wearing a red blazer, storms the gate of Delaney Hall Detention Center, assaulting an ICE agent. So here is their evidence. Same footage, different angle.
You cat!
That sound drop was actually an accident. But okay, as so often happens with this administration, you know they're bullshitting when the evidence that they give you doesn't show anything. Did that show you that she's rushing that facility, that she's attacking the facility? Let's see again what they seem to think this is a smoking gun, what they're showing you here. It looks to me like a woman being pushed from behind.
Yeah, the guy in the blue suit.
That's what they got. That's what they got. This is their evidence. People being jostled around in a chaotic situation. She's bum rushing the ICE agents, really?
Yeah, her mistake was she should have worn a Hagar the Horrible helmet and painted her face blue and red.
Well, that would have been, she would have gotten the Medal of Honor if she had done that. All right, they released, in addition to this, to back up their case, they released body cam footage as well, which again, the more footage they release, the more exonerating it seems to be. You be the judge.
To a congresswoman like that, and you gotta put your hands on me, you will pay. You guys are creating this. If it's harassment, you know that's wrong.
So this is the actual arrest here of the mayor. And again, you can see this is a chaotic situation where she's being jostled. Okay. So this is what they released as their evidence that they rushed the gate and assaulted the very well-armed and very well-armored ICE officers. So here is a very emotional Bob Menendez Jr. afterwards addressing the press.
I can't begin to describe what happened here today. It started as part of our core functions as members of Congress to conduct oversight of ICE and privately run detention centers, where we waited patiently for over an hour and a half. Just waited. Waited to do what we've done together at Elizabeth Detention Center. We waited. And then we only saw action taking place outside where we were waiting, not knowing what was happening. We walked out to see what was going on. We saw Mayor Baraka out here by himself, mayor of the largest city in New Jersey, waiting for us to come back. ICE brought to meet the mayor of Newark over 20 armed individuals. 20 armed individuals to confront the mayor of Newark, along with 3 members of Congress. It was an act of intimidation. It was an act of intimidation not just to the mayor, not just to us, but to everyone watching. We know what ICE has been doing in our communities. We know that the president lied and this administration lies every day when they're saying they're going after criminals. It is not true. They feel no weight of the law. They feel no restraint on what they should be doing. And that was shown in broad daylight today when they not just arrested the mayor of Newark, but when they put their hands on 2 members of Congress who are standing behind me. How is this acceptable to anyone in this country? How is this acceptable?
I was there for over an...
Okay, so from what they're saying, they actually waited an hour and a half to enter the facility. And eventually, this is not a dispute. They were allowed to enter the facility. And again, all this seems to have happened when they came back out to join Baraka. So Baraka was ultimately released, although he still has pending charges. He has to be in court May 15th as of now. But here's an appearance he made after his release on CNN.
I was there for over an hour in that space, and nobody ever told me to move. I was in there for over an hour. Not a single person, not an officer from ICE, not any of the security guards. Nobody told me to leave that place. Somebody from Homeland Security came in the end and began to escalate the situation, and we wound up being where we are today. And that's frankly the extent of it. I didn't go there to break any laws. I didn't break any laws. I was there as the mayor of the city, exercising my right and duty as an elected official, supporting our Congress people, preparing for a press conference that was supposed to happen there. I did not enter that place unlawfully. I did not break any laws. And so all of that is incorrect.
All right. So now if you're a woman and you want to work for the Trump administration, there are a few requirements. If you did not personally kill a dog, you got to have a dye job. You got to have a blonde dye job. You got to have a big cross, and you have to have a fondness for lavender. Don't believe me?
Yes.
Before, after. Before, after. It's like looking in a mirror, right?
Yeah.
Like looking in a mirror 30 years on. Now, meet Tricia McLaughlin, who is actually the dog killer's assistant at the Department of Homeland Security. She's like in the Pod Person movie where they're like mid-transformation. She's still got the brown roots. She doesn't have the cross yet. Yeah, she's not wearing the lavender. But man, she has the pattern down very well. So here she is talking about how those very, very threatening Congress people were assaulting and body slamming the ICE agents. I shit you not.
Thanks, Victor, for having me. I'm glad I can be here to actually give viewers the facts. What happened is that these members of Congress, including the mayor as well, and a mob of protesters, as there was a bus full of detainees going through the gate, they stormed the gate and actually entered the first security checkpoint. This put law enforcement at risk, and this actually put the detainees as well at risk. If any official, including these members of Congress, want to enter the facility and take a tour, DHS is more than accommodating. But just because you're a member of Congress does not mean you can break the law, trespass, put law enforcement at risk, and storm the detention facility. I have yet to hear anyone on this network actually talk about who is in this detention facility. There are members of MS-13, known terrorists, murderers, child rapists. There are some of the worst in this detention facility, and I'm still very confused why these Democrats are so hell-bent on getting these heinous actors out of this facility when we have the proper permitting. And actually, in that press conference, those members of Congress actually noted the great conditions of this facility that our ICE enforcement officers so bravely operate. So we should let viewers know there will likely be more arrests coming. We actually have body camera footage of some of these members of Congress assaulting our ICE enforcement officers, including body slamming a female ICE officer. So we will be showing that to viewers very shortly.
You say a
The
video
American
of
people should know
members
the
of
facts.
Congress body slamming ICE
That's correct.
officials?
That's correct, sir. It's disgusting.
Okay, and so if you have that video, are you suggesting that members of Congress will be arrested who were there yesterday?
This is an ongoing investigation, and that is definitely on the table.
Who has the video?
ICE does, and we will be releasing that very shortly.
Okay. Let's talk about...
Arresting me for what? I'm not allowed to stand up for myself? I thought this was America.
Okay, so you saw the footage that they've released. Did you see people getting bodies left? Like, look at this little old lady. He was body slamming people. So this is what she had to say when CNN asked her about this accusation.
spokesperson for DHS who was on CNN. She used the words body slamming, saying that the mayor and other members of Congress were body slamming and were being rough with the ICE officials. You're disputing that.
Yeah, so how ridiculous does that sound? They're 200 pounds. They've got about 35 pounds worth of stuff around them, including a gun on their arms. I can tell you what I think about what they're saying. The president of the United States opens his mouth every day and lies. He can't breathe without lying. He's given permission to his cabinet and those who work for him to lie. And she's lying too. And so I was there. I saw it. I was a part of it. I was in the middle of it. We did not in any way, shape, or form disrespect the physicality of any of those ICE agents. And to say so is just to perpetuate the kind of lying that we are experiencing in this country at the highest levels.
Yeah, it's pretty typical of this administration. When they want to justify something, they just find a pretext and they don't worry too much about what the obvious truth is. They know there's not going to be much of a price to be paid amongst their diehard supporters for just making stuff up. So this is what a spokesperson for Watson Coleman had to say, quote, threatening to arrest members of Congress for exercising their lawful oversight authority is another example of this administration abusing its power to try to intimidate anyone who stands up to them. The spokesperson said their office has reviewed the body cam footage and that it proves ICE agents put their hands on members of Congress. It also proves that DHS has been lying about this incident. Quote, we're honestly surprised they released this footage, given that it so wholly contradicts their claims. Nobody was body slammed. Nobody assaulted any agents. And this footage confirms that. You saw the footage. I would agree with that assessment. So, hey, this is very consistent with how they've been handling, particularly the administration of so-called justice. They really don't care what the law is. If the law gets in their way, they'll make something up to make it sound as if they have some kind of a legitimate basis for their actions. We'll see that later with the Habeus Corpus question. They're having trouble selling the Alien Enemies Act to judges. So now they're trying to fall back on getting rid of Habeus Corpus. This is extremely dangerous. As with so much else, it seems designed to intimidate all political opposition with complete disregard for the law. Clearly, comparisons have been made to the way the Nazis rounded up mayors and political opponents. We don't want to fall into Godwin's law, but even your more run-of-the-mill dictatorial regimes, this is usually part of the playbook, man. Intimidate the opposition. If you can arrest judges, if you can arrest politicians on very thin pretexts, if you can flood the zone enough that by the time this court is deciding that what you did here is illegal, you've already gone on to arrest 3 more people, and now that has to work its way into the courts. This is an administration of criminals who are really trying to follow a Curtis Yarvin playbook to create a totalitarian state where the president has the powers of an all-powerful CEO and the judges are completely neutralized. This is what they're trying to do. It doesn't matter if you like these politicians, if you like the political party they're a part of, if you like what they represent, if you like their views on immigration. This is a classic case of, if they could do that to a member of Congress, what chance do you have? That is the reason you have to protect for everyone freedom of speech, habeas corpus, and the prerogatives of Congress under the Constitution. Once that goes, that's it. That's it. You have no recourse to the law. This is why nobody already wants to come here anymore. Why would you come visit a place where the law is arbitrary? Once the law is arbitrary, everybody is vulnerable.
Yeah, and if this were not about just thuggery and intimidation and suppression of dissent, if this were really about an urgent need to deport undocumented immigrants, then why is it that overall deportation numbers are actually down from the Biden years? They're actually deporting fewer immigrants than Joe Biden did. Their numbers for all of this sound and fury, for all of this spectacle that they're making of events like this for the purpose of intimidating people, yes, for the purpose of chest pounding, the numbers suggest that Joe Biden was more serious about deportations than they are. And Obama too, yes. And the second point that I have to make about this, because, a lot of, MAGA people like to differentiate themselves from the policies and the legacy of George W. Bush, particularly the post 9/11 foreign policy agenda, but not just the foreign policy agenda, but the crackdown on civil liberties here at home. I should remind you, and you should be reminded of this every single day, ICE was created in 2003. ICE is not a long-standing American institution. ICE was created in response to 9/11 under the Department of Homeland Security, which was also established in response to 9/11 1 year prior, 2002. So all of this is very new. All of this is part of the post 9/11 neocon. Yes, get the shit out of your ears so you can hear that. Neocon post 9/11 police state infrastructure. That's what all of this is. And at the time, civil libertarians on both sides of the aisle of all political philosophies, people on the left were talking about this. Ron Paul was talking about this very loudly at the time, that it is only a matter of when, not if, but when this infrastructure gets abused at the expense of the average American. And that's where we are right now. So if you're cheering, if you're one of the chuds out there, ICE, ICE, baby, congratulations. You're a neocon. You're a neocon. You're a run-of-the-mill George Bush era surveillance state neocon Republican. That's all you are. There's nothing edgy about you. There's nothing original about you. There's nothing creative about you. You're just a sheep who's been sold the George W. Bush post 9/11 agenda in new packaging that looks cooler. And so you think you're different. You're not. You're no different. You're no different. All of this is a product of the post 9/11 hysterical paranoia. And there are a lot of people who consider themselves awful red-pilled who are just walking right into it.
Yeah, George Bush made the mistake of not playing the race card. He would have been a lot more successful selling this if he had not had a certain Northeastern Rockefeller Republican distaste for just going full Klan.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, that is actually historically true. He went out of his way to say we're not at war with the Muslim world, right? Yep. If he had just gone more xenophobic in his branding, he would have sold it a lot easier, as it turns out. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. All right, CEB Applejack, thanks for the $5. I get that people want this idea that Trump is turning his back on Netanyahu, but I think we are forgetting one big thing. What happened to Jimmy? What do you mean, what happened to Jimmy? What one big thing? What big thing? I mean, I don't know of any developments on that front. There's been a lot of big news to come this week. There's been a lot. So we got the Zelensky Putin summit. It's going to be where are they having that, in Turkey on Thursday? And Trump insulting Putin in front of that conference, saying he's too busy. I don't know if they'll show up. He's too busy talking about victory over World War II, which wouldn't have happened without us, the United States. Yeah, so that's great. And then there are these talks that are upcoming. There was reporting that they had a personal falling out, and obviously some conflicting reporting about Palestinian statehood. One Israeli outlet said he's going to acknowledge a Palestinian state. One outlet said, no, he's not. You just have to wait and see how that shakes out. The fact that he and Netanyahu had a fight on the phone is not surprising, and it's not unusual. Look, no one likes Netanyahu.
You can't wear that dress. I'm wearing that dress.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't think anyone has a good personal relationship and genuine friendship with Benjamin Netanyahu. I think they all tolerate him to the extent they feel they have to. Trump more so than everyone else by about $100 million. But yeah, I mean, I think it's totally transactional. It's not a surprise to me that they had a falling out. But yeah, on the Israel ceasefire negotiations and on Russia-Ukraine, there was a lot of reporting today about what might happen this week. To me, it's not news until it happens. And on Twitter, it's especially easy to get caught up in that because on Twitter, people tweet shit out. Breaking what? Breaking speculation about a talk that's going to happen this week, maybe. I mean, that's not really breaking. That gets a lot of play on Twitter, but it's not really breaking. Yeah. What's that?
Trump might say a thing.
Yeah, right. Trump might say something this week. Right, exactly. That's all it is.
Oh, my God. Is Trump going to do something that's going to make me look like less of a total jackass than I've been looking for propping up this administration for the last few months?
Right.
Greatest president ever.
Best president ever. Interesting. We always think, Javier, thanks for the $4.99. Interesting. We always think about women when we talk about sex work. What about this aspiring gigolo? Well, we wish you luck in your endeavors, Javier. Right. CEB Applejack, thanks for the $2. Trump should 100% tariff BYD cars, no sell to USA. Thank you, CEB Applejack. Appreciate that.
Well, we already have a crazy tariff on them, right? That's why we don't have them.
I think that must be why we don't have them. Otherwise, I can't imagine.
That's the only reason fucking Tesla even has a market share here.
That's right.
From everything we've seen, you bring those BYDs over here, that'll be it.
Yeah. Kuznetsky Bassane, thanks to the $9.99. Appreciate that very much. Matt H says, shame on you for debuting the Misty Winsty show on Matt Lieb's birthday. I went out to that, but was bummed I couldn't do both. Oh, is that a way of humble bragging that you got invited to Matt Lieb's birthday? I think it is, but congratulations, Matt. You're really cool that you got invited to a birthday party. Congratulations. Thank you for the $5. Well, you watched the replay. That's good. Yes, it was last Wednesday, and happy birthday to Matt Lieb. Patty Savage, thanks to the $9.99. Thank you for reporting on relevant and important issues. Well, thank you, Patty. Appreciate that. John Hall, the guitarist for Orleans. Yes, he was. He was. What was their hit song? They had a couple of hit songs. Still the One. Yeah, he was the guitar player. Yeah. He's a fairly big musician. Landrew, thanks for the $100.
Oh, snap.
From Landrew. Thank you, Landrew. Appreciate that, Landrew. Very kind of you.
There.
All right, Russ is getting your sound drops together. Beautiful.
I am Landrew.
Landrew is dead.
Landrew says for $100, believe nothing out of Washington. Palestine recognized as a nation. China crawling to make a deal. Prescription drugs. Ansar Allah begging for peace. Genocide Don changes his mind at 60 hertz. Love the show and audience. Free Palestine. Thank you, Landrew. Love you too. Appreciate that very much.
I am inclined to agree.
Yes,
Look,
I agree with
not that the Democrats, given who owns them, which are mostly the same people, would have done an executive order to lower pharmaceutical drug prices, but I just can't believe it's that simple that you can executive order that.
We shall see. Katrina Greshner, thanks for the $50. That's very kind of you. Let's have a cowbell for Katrina. Thank you guys for your generosity tonight. Appreciate that. It helps tremendously with the show. Katrina says, Keaton, what's the colorful book series on your left? Lactation nurses are invaluable. I hear anecdotally more newborns are needing help with nursing. Thoughts? Well, yes, newborns are increasingly needing help with nursing because given the shit that goes into baby formula and the skyrocketing cost of baby formula, mothers are not too keen to give up on breastfeeding. So if it doesn't work out, yes, they are turning more for help as they should. Breastfeeding is much, much healthier for the baby and much more economically viable than buying formula for $50 a jar. When we had our twins, we had to supplement with formula because it was just too hard to produce enough milk for twins all the time. We did as much of the breastfeeding as we could. But for this guy, the new guy, luckily, he has two boobs all to himself, so he's raised on pure milk, so he's going to be a real juggernaut. But yes, breastfeeding is very important, and yes, moms should get help that they need. And the book series, I think you're referring to this, the colorful stuff. This is the Folger Shakespeare library. I used to work at Barnes & Noble, so I got a nice discount on the books And at the time, I think these are only $6 a piece, $5 a piece. So yeah, I got these for like $3 a piece. So I invested in getting most of the Shakespeare plays individually, not just the complete works, because the Folger had by far the best of the liner notes, in my opinion.
I
It was a lot easier to
still
enjoy
have
them.
that Riverside Shakespeare.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Holding on to it in case I ever have to brain a burglar.
Yeah, right. There you go. All right. We will move right along here. Progressive Lefty. Wife had a complicated birth, a week in a hospital, baby in incubator. Cost $0. Wow. Where are you from, Progressive Lefty? Are you an American?
Not this shithole.
Can't be from here. All right. Is the Turks very nice people? See, this is why I can play this show on my speaker at work. My Albanian coworker might kill me. Thank you. No, we do appreciate that. Okay. Oh, all right. This is a fun one. Okay, folks. All right. This is a strong candidate for most ridiculous story of the year. And we are talking about the United States to begin admitting white South African refugees. That's right. Here they are. They are approaching shore, everyone. The United States will begin admitting the first group of white South African refugees next week, whom President Trump's administration has argued have been victims of racial discrimination. Around 60 Afrikaners are expected to arrive at the Dulles International Airport Monday on a State Department chartered jet. The Washington Post reported Friday. Look at that, door-to-door service.
Wow.
Chartered a jet to pick them up, citing documents and emails it obtained along with 3 government officials with the matter. Yes, they had a Mel Gibson triple feature on the movie screen on the way over. They really pulled out all the stops for them. So Farm Girl Carrie posts this report here. I'm not sure how you feel about this, but I'm okay with it. I believe they will be grateful and contribute to America.
Holy
That's
Jesus.
right. So here is a news report on the pending arrival of the the embattled South African refugees.
It's a divisive move.
Thank you, Mr. Trump.
Especially given that Trump has been blocking refugee admissions from the rest of the world. 2 of the sources, who requested anonymity as they were sharing internal plans, said their aim is to fly the initial cohort of around 50 Afrikaners into Washington Dulles International Airport in Virginia.
It was like an answered prayer.
Life coach Katia Beeden is administrator of a website that seeks to help white South Africans take up Trump's offer.
We've been forgotten. It's very hard for us to travel. It's very hard for us to get visas. So to suddenly hear that a country like the United States is offering us refugee status was a really big deal. And I was so excited. I felt so relieved. It just felt like a lifeline.
In February, Trump issued an executive order that called for the US to resettle Afrikaner refugees. It said Afrikaners, who are descendants of mostly Dutch early settlers, were victims of unjust racial discrimination. The assertion that minority white South Africans face discrimination from the black majority has spread in far-right circles for years and been echoed by Trump's white South African-born ally.
You just call on me, brother, when you need a hand. Sing it.
Put my foot in the cracker.
We all need somebody to lean on. Sing it, everybody. Sing it in the chat. Yes, that's right. What a feel-good story this is. Here's Stephen Miller explaining the rationale for this.
Africa fits the textbook definition of why the refugee program was created. This is persecution based on a protected characteristic, in this case, race. So this is race-based persecution. The refugee program is not intended as a solution for global poverty. And historically, it has been used that way. Wherever there's global poverty or wherever there's dysfunctional governments, then the U.S. refugee program comes in, swoops people up, relocates them to America, and you have multi-generational problems. You even into the second and third generation, you have endemic poverty, you have crime issues, you have integration issues. The U.S. refugee program in America has been a catastrophic failure. I mean, if you look, for example, at the Twin Cities area, I mean, just in terms of markers of educational outcomes, in terms of public safety.
Is that where the black kid stole the woman's purse and she called him the N-word? That was in Minnesota. I don't know if that was Twin Cities, but is that what he's hinting at. Hey, you have all these Somalians around Minnesota. Yeah, that's a failure.
Yeah, I mean, if the standard is people being murdered for racial characteristics, there are a lot of hot spots we need to get to. Are they going to go to Sudan next?
Yeah, Sudan.
Are we going to bring in a bunch of Sudanese refugees?
Yeah.
Since they're so concerned about white South Africans being made to feel icky.
Yeah.
Can people who are actually being murdered and starved, can we bring them over if that's the criteria?
Right.
You know, it's funny because you posted about this and I jumped into that chat a little bit. You know, a lot of them want to pretend, because most people, even now in this moment when the N-word is having its great resurgence, even now, usually they want to pretend not to be bigots at first, so they'll try to say skills, which obviously when the skills you're talking about are agricultural by comparison to South and Central Americans who have been running our farms for decades, is absolutely ridiculous. Oh, we need white South Africans because the people coming from south of the border don't have agricultural skills that they're going to bring. And if you just push them a little bit, because now they're emboldened, you just push them a little bit. Yeah, well, they don't have the problems with being low IQ criminals.
Yeah, no.
So there. And what? We're the only race that can't speak for our own. I mean, I'm glad they rip off the masks so easily now. It saves a lot of time. Like just a little pushback and the bed sheets.
Oh yeah,
go right on. You know. Yeah.
Yep. And we have some of that later on to show you guys. The families are expected to be resettled in 10 different states, the Post reported. So the Washington Post had the first piece about this. This was the most condensed timeline I could find here in the Hill, citing unnamed sources familiar with the plans. Trump signed an executive order in early February to formally pause all aid to South Africa and directed his cabinet to formulate a resettlement program for Afrikaners who he contended are victims of unjust racial discrimination. The president and other top U.S. government officials have slammed South Africa's Expropriation Act, which was signed into law by President Cyril Ramaphosa, alleging it is violating the human rights of Afrikaners and the country is illegally confiscating their land because of it. South Africa's government has strongly denied the claims. Yes, the number of acres of land that have been seized without compensation by the South African government is zero.
Literally
South Africa, zero. Literally zero. South Africa is being terrible plus to longtime farmers in the country. Terrible plus to longtime farmers in the country. They are confiscating their land and farms, and much worse than that. A bad place to be right now, and we are stopping all federal funding. To go a step further, any farmer with family from South Africa seeking to flee that country for reasons of safety will be invited to the United States of America with a rapid pathway to citizenship. This process will begin immediately. So they're not even going to get green cards. They're going to become citizens, which means not only will they be put up here, they'll be allowed to criticize Israel. That's what privileges they have, right? Because if you're a green card member, you can't criticize Israel.
No.
But a citizen can. So look at the privileges they're going to be afforded.
Yeah, I don't know how much they'll be availing themselves of those privileges.
Yeah, I somehow doubt that. So here's Senator Chris Van Hollen, who I got to say, listen, I'm sure he's not perfect, but, as Democrats go, he seems pretty based. He's got quite a resume going here. Trump and Musk are about to give refugee status to 60 white South Africans who do not need it, while Trump locks up and deports refugees here who face genuine dangers in other countries. This is the slick global apartheid policy being adopted. Global apartheid policy being adopted by this lawless administration. Yes, I agree. He should run for president. Maybe he'll win the first 3 states, and then James Clyburn will endorse Rahm Emanuel ahead of South Carolina, and Rahm Emanuel will run the board and be the nominee. But it might be fun for this guy to waste a year and a half running for president. He might give people the impression that he's going to win. And that might be fun for a period of time. So we're not going to get too into this. We've done a few segments about this, but it does belong here. The misinformation on South Africa's new Land Act, South Africa's Expropriation Act, mirrors eminent domain rules in the United States and other countries. That's right. This whole, oh my God, can you believe the government can see? The government could fucking seize your house tomorrow if they want it.
And this is called eminent domain.
It's called eminent domain. And these laws are actually weaker than that. While many activists in South Africa and elsewhere have decried the Expropriation Act as the government rejecting the private property regime, it is important to note that democratic constitutions around the world reserve powers of expropriation for the public interest, known popularly in the United States as eminent domain. For example, South Africa's 1994 Constitution, the U.S. Constitution's Fifth Amendment, and the constitutions of Spain, Germany, India, and Australia, among many others, explicitly reserve expropriation powers. The Expropriation Act requires that expropriation powers be used for a public purpose or in the public interest, and that such expropriations are subject to compensation as either agreed upon or approved by the courts, which means the government has to make you an offer. If you can't come up with a number, the court comes up with a number. Now, theoretically, that number could be 0, but no such ruling has been issued yet. No such ruling has been issued yet. There has not been 1 acre of land confiscated by the government without cost yet.
What about, I hear they've murdered hundreds of white South Africans.
Yeah, well, that's another thing
true.
that you'll hear. Yeah. There are, however, 2 main ways in which the Expropriation Act differs from earlier acts. First, it delineates the conditions of public interest more broadly in the act. Equitable access to all South Africa's natural resources. While critics may claim this definition is uniquely expansionist, this language is taken directly from the South African Constitution and reflects a long-standing rhetorical and legal commitment of the democratic state. Secondly, the act establishes the threshold for uncompensated expropriation. Section 12 of the act outlines the nil compensation conditions as land taken in the public interest where 1, the land is not being used for development or commercial purposes, 2, where the state holds the land but does not require it in the future, 3, where the land has been abandoned, or 4, where the value of the land is exceeded by the value of the current state investments in the land. In other words, if the state has invested more in the upkeep and maintenance of that land than it is worth on the commercial marketplace, the government can invoke the nil compensation clause, if you will. These conditions are very limited and do much to protect individual landowners, but these conditions have been the subject of controversy since the bill's inception because they establish a threshold for expropriation of land without compensation. So here's a township in South Africa. We did a piece on this where you see those very small steel-roofed houses that are grouped very, very close to each other. That is where the black people in this township live. Now you ask, why are they living like that with all of that beautiful land surrounding the village? Well, the answer is because all of that beautiful land surrounding the village is white-owned land, which means the people living in the houses there do not have access to develop that land and improve their standard of living. So South Africa is still very much an economically occupied country where 7% of the population who are white still own more than 70% of the land. 30 years plus past the apartheid regime. So, given those dynamics, I pointed out, it's kind of hard to argue your immigration crackdown isn't racist when you make an exception for white South Africans. Yabal says, not if you viewed them as persecuted refugees fleeing racial and political violence. And, right, because there's no persecution or political violence in Central America, right? With the Jerry Seinfeld eye roll from the great
Africa.
episode. Or Africa, right. But Central America, that's the issue they have. That's what they really have an issue with now. The Jerry eye roll gif is from the great episode where they're in the car with the neo-Nazi after a mix-up at the airport. And George says, we'll just have to get out when we're in the city. They won't shoot us in the city. Jerry says, no one ever gets shot in the city. And there's a big eye roll. That's where that gif comes from. No, there's no political violence in Central America, not at all. So, Russell, you can read your tweet. I'll give you that courtesy. This is Russ's reply to this thread.
The idea that we should favor white South Africans over South and Central Americans because, wait for it, they know more about farming than the people we've been relying on to do our farm work for decades is one of the funnier justifications for favoring rich white landowners over poor brown migrants I've heard. I respect the open racists who literally say they want them because they're white a hell of a lot more. At least that's honest.
Yes. Indeed.
They have skills.
Right, yeah, they have skills. So Baron von Tweets.
Rocketry.
Yeah, exactly. No. Baron von Tweet says it's extremely easy to argue it, actually. Meaning it's extremely easy to argue that, the crackdown is not racist, even though they're making an exception for white South Africans. White South Africans are legitimately a hunted, oppressed minority. Most of the other third worlders we let in don't fit this definition. They just don't like the country they live in because everyone is useless like them. See, this is what I mean. Yeah, it doesn't take much to just see who they are.
Just a little pushback.
And what they're all about. A belligerent Texan certainly lives up to his name. What, you two, can't say that one here, have nothing to say to the law? Typical mouthy, can't say that either. Let me help your tiny minds expand. Illegal aliens are not welcome. Refugees are. So learn how to read, stop being biased little bitches, and go fuck yourselves. Also, if you don't like it, get out. So notice...
I must say I feel mentally quite expanded now.
Yeah, exactly. Notice, 5 views on that one. This other guy here, 18 views. What's very common amongst these people who will come at you like this is that, no one cares what they have to say. That's why no one reads their tweets. And it's like that online. It's like that in their real lives.
When you go and you look at their followings, it's like 7. Right. They got like 7 followers.
And in real life, they have even fewer followers. So this is a common thing. These are just, broken, bitter people who, with no one to listen to them. And this is
in real life, even the dog went to live with the neighbor.
This is why. Yeah. Yeah, no, this is one of the most ridiculous stories of the year. And this was, an executive order in February. We've been talking about this a lot lately, how, they've been saying, this whole time about, no, our issue with immigration and open borders, quote unquote, is not based upon or rooted in any kind of racial grievance. It's all about, protecting the economic interests of Americans. Okay, so then why are you letting these South African agricultural workers in here? They're not going to compete for jobs against Americans? Like, why do we make an exception for them? We don't just make an exception for them. We send a charter jet to pick them up. Door-to-door service. Full service.
Right.
It's so laughable. They
get better treatments than American mothers.
Of course. Whoa, I thought we don't like it. I thought a core resentment amongst MAGA was that the political class cares more about illegal immigrants, undocumented immigrants, than they do about American citizens. Okay, so when you take a vacation, to wherever, France, does the State Department charter a jet to come pick you up? Do you buy a one-way ticket to France and then you get picked up by the United States government? Why are they shuttled in? Why are we rolling out the red carpet for these people? Because they're being oppressed? What, there's no oppression in Honduras? There's no oppression in El Salvador? There's no oppression in Venezuela? I thought the Venezuelan people are oppressed, so why are we taking them in? I thought the evil communist dictator, shouldn't we take every Venezuelan? If Maduro is such an evil totalitarian thug, shouldn't we take all Venezuelans? Well, what about Cuba? Shouldn't we take every Cuban in? Are they the victims of state oppression? It's completely masked off. It's ridiculous. It's so laughable. There's almost nothing to say. You show it for what it is, and it's just so obvious.
Yeah. To be fair, owning 93% of the land is not owning 100% of the land. That 7% is really oppressive.
Yeah.
It's really weighing on the white South Africans. Look, this is the oldest trick in the book, and we've particularly been seeing it lately more and more since the election. This is an old ruling class playbook, man. Like, when you want to rob people and you want them to be happy with their state of poverty and lack of opportunity, you got to give them someone to blame. You got to give them a scapegoat. And the scapegoat traditionally for white people have been black people, brown people, any non-white people. Now, I made the argument for a very long time that the Democrats serve the function of doing the same thing from the other end. They gin up, their function in the system is to create a backlash against white people in order to keep workers divided. It's the same language, right? Like they can't as a ideologically attack black people, attack brown people. That's the Republicans' job. So they attack white people. The whole point of it is to just keep us fighting. If you look at how outrageous a lot of this language is, yeah, do these racists feel empowered by feeling like on the other side they've been speaking this language of race in the other direction, which they have? Yeah, of course that empowered them. That allowed them to feel that expressing these kinds of ideas are legitimate because they do it too. They've been doing it to us.
Right. And what I would say, I think the reason why this is as destructive as it is because, yeah, they want to claim it's tit for tat. Okay, if we want to claim it's tit for tat, at a certain point you have to zoom out and say, okay, big picture, what is really the score here? Like, this is what we talked about when we did the Shiloh Hendricks thing. Okay, so you've had snarky articles written about you by blue-haired shitlibs for 7 years, and you think what? That is as difficult to endure as everything that black and brown people had to endure before that? Like, if you really want to have an honest accounting of this, it's still not even close.
Right.
It's still not even close. And that's why I say this is so mask off, because it just reveals there is no real sense of proportionality here. This is just pure race hatred. That's all it can be. Don't tell me it isn't. If you're going to tell me it isn't, then you have to say, why are South Africans being flown here on a charter jet by the State Department? Because they're white.
Well, this is what's so crazy about it. And we got into this in the Shiloh Hendricks thing, because on the one, you've been saying, and you still say, that non-white people have no right to grievance because these things happened in the past. They're not happening now. What they have to deal with now is not that severe. All you had to deal with are mean articles for, say, really enforced for about 5 years. And on a more serious level, economic dislocation for about 40. But for black people specifically, that economic dislocation has been the entire time they've been in the country. Things have never been good for that population. So if you're entitled to this rage, what are they entitled to? Why is so much of your argument that why do they think they're entitled to be? I mean, but you feel you're entitled because a bunch of libs wrote stuff about the unbearable whiteness of so-and-so? You're entitled? The white South Africa thing, I got to say, man, of every like psyop kind of thing that I've seen coming out of that quarter, that one's the fucking craziest, man. When you bring this shit up, they go berserk, man. Like, you've been told that immigrants and refugees are destroying the economy and destroying your job so that you don't look at the, 5 people who have all the money and go to their houses to have a talk with them, of course. And it was so easy to get you this riled up about the oppression of fucking white South Africans who own 93% of the land. How stupid are you?
Yeah.
How stupid are you that because you talk to these people, they are fucking enraged.
Oh, yeah.
On behalf of the white South Africans that own 93% of the country. It is a remarkable testament to the decency of the black majority that they still hold all of that land after the peaceful revolution that they had. That's incredible. That is incredible. That just the fact that there was not the kind of enormous revenge and retaliation that you in your bizarre white snowflake fantasy world are concocting that does not actually exist.
That doesn't actually exist. That's right. That doesn't actually exist. A lot of the violence against the farmers happens because a lot of these farmers, by the way, just to add insult to injury, they don't even employ the black South Africans on their farms. They employ illegal immigrants to work the farms, and they often stiff them for pay. And they either dock their pay for no reason or refuse to pay them at all. And then when the immigrant laborer says, "Where's my money?" they say, "We're not giving it to you." They say, "Well, you have to." They say, "Well, you want to make a stink about it, I guess we will just report you to immigration services." Well, from time to time, those situations escalate, right? I don't condone violence, but, that is the kind of situation that can turn violent, if you know what I mean. So that's where a lot of that comes from. No, it's, look, if I were the black president of South Africa, I would just sign an order saying, we're taking half of this land. We're taking it. We're not paying you anything. We're taking it. It's ours. Right. That's it. Fuck you. Like, that would be my position. So the fact that they're going through this process, they're adhering to constitutional precepts. I mean, yes, it's very admirable, but apparently they're the biggest victims on earth, and they get to fly here on a charter jet while you pay $45,000 to have a baby in America. Yeah. But there's no resentment towards the white South Africans. This is what I mean. The same people who are my life is so hard. Why is the red carpet being rolled out for the immigrant? None of those people, seemingly, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I don't hear from them. I don't see anything. I haven't heard a peep from MAGA world about this. I haven't had nobody. Some of them
only to defend it.
Right. Some of them will speak out against the Israel stuff. Marjorie Taylor Greene came out against the boycott bill. She had a lot of support in that. So there are some MAGA people who buck the leadership on certain issues. On this, not a word. Not a word about how they're getting a raw deal, but these white South Africans are being given first-class treatment. Not a word. Not a word. What does that say about where you're coming from that can only say one thing? I'm not trying to be an asshole here. We don't jump to the assumption that people are motivated by racial animus, but this is just process of elimination, folks. Like, I don't know what else to think. What else can you think?
Well, this has been my argument for the entire time we've had the show, and obviously who's in power shifted, so our focus has shifted. But when I saw from the other side these proposals of segregated dorms, I said, are you insane? Do you realize what you're re-legitimizing by arguing these things? What do you think they're going to do with it when they have power now that you've opened this door? I'm not saying they made them racist, but I think they smoothed the path for them to take these kinds of actions because you re-legitimize the idea of race being paramount. It was extremely short-sighted, dangerous, and I think, frankly, again, deep state intentional to make sure that you would break down the liberal universal consensus. Oh, color blindness, that's racist. Okay, well, what's the alternative? Race is paramount. Who does that favor? Who does that philosophy favor? Not the 13% of the population that's black. That's what was so fucking insane about a misleadership class that would lead people down that road. Even on the wane, whites are about 64% of the country. So how did you think that was going to go if you re-legitimized this way of litigating race? That race is first and foremost. What did you think was going to happen with these crackers? They agree. They fully agree.
All right. FU says, where was COVID-19 created? Hey, didn't Sachs say it was North Carolina? I have to look more into that, but that's an interesting twist. I mean, I had heard that before, but there was that video of him talking about how he knew that with 99% certainty. And he seems in a position to know. So I would take that bet if I had to. Me Shoot Skeet, thanks to the $5. Professional wrestling has been a better script than American politics. Thank you, Me Shoot Skeet. P. Walker, where is it? Where the heck did it go? P. Walker, there it is, sorry. Methinks that all the caravans and the Darien Gap were lies. They made it all up to make people shit their pants. Thank you, P. Walker. Magnus Scalagrimson, thanks to the $1.99. I was joking about Jimmy because everyone crying. Oh, everyone crying. Who's everyone crying? But thank you, CBG Applejack. Conor McGregor was never my friend. Thanks for the 1999. Appreciate that. Phenomenal point. Part of why I'm starting to reform as a chud. Well, that's great. We have a reformed chud in the audience. That's great. Round of applause for Conor McGregor. Part of why I'm starting to reform as a chud. The disconnect between what I grew up with, which was hating the Patriot Act, DHS, and infringements on human civil rights. It's sad and sick. Yes, this is all a product of the post 9/11 police state infrastructure. What the Trump administration is doing now is weaponizing that to a greater extent than the architects did. That's what's so crazy about it. Fadista, thanks for the $5. Did either of you see Catherine Austin Fitz on Door recently? Would you consider having her on? Yes, I did catch most of the clips. I didn't catch that one live, but I caught most of the clips, and yeah, those were interesting. Yeah, I think she'd be great to talk to. She reminds me so much of my kindergarten teacher. She's like a dead ringer from my old kindergarten teacher. So it was a little distracting. Yeah. My old kindergarten, she was married to a politician, actually. But yeah, she's a dead ringer. Hey, Jake, can you do us a favor and put the scroll up on the screen, please? Thank you. All right, so folks, hey, if you like what we do here, the best way you can help us out is by becoming a member at either Patreon, Substack, or Locals. The links are right there on the screen. DoDissidents.com/Patreon, DoDissidents.com/Substack, and DoDissidents.com/Locals. For just $5 a month, you get all kinds of perks, including your name up on the show credits, call-in access to our weekly Q&As, which are after the show every Sunday night over on Rumble, including tonight, because, hey, it's Sunday, so we'll be headed over there after the conclusion of the program tonight. We're also going to do exclusive member-only post games toward the end of every month, one of the final streams of every month, depending on which day it falls on. We will do the last few segments for members only, and then a call-in Q&A, a special member call-in Q&A afterwards. We do movie club live streams, which are exclusive for paid members. You also get pre-recorded access to our full-length interviews. We hope to be starting those up again in the coming days. And also, you get full-length ad-free replays of all of our live streams the day after they air. People have been loving that feature. So if you miss a stream and you don't want to watch it back with ad interruptions on YouTube and Rumble, when you become a member, you get the full stream emailed to you the day after, straight through, no ads, no interruptions, just as though you're watching it live. So those are the perks of becoming a member. It starts at just $5 a month or $50 a year. So you save for 2 months. You get 2 months free if you sign up annually on Locals or Substack. And that is the best way to help us out. So thank you all very much for your support. Which Shigo says, there are no cats in America and the streets are paved with cheese. 50 Mouskowitz, thank you for that. Appreciate that. Kenman says, in fairness, I saw AOC kick an ICE officer in the nuts. Thank you, AOC. Appreciate that. In my country, there is problem, and that problem ain't the do. They take every patron's money to bring the truth to you. Yes. Little Borat reference there. Thank you. Throw the dew down the well. Otacon, on top of that, a good doctor is worth their weight in gold. Most just want to hook you on pills and get kickbacks from Big Pharma to do so. Thank you, Otacon. Appreciate that. Well, another problem of this, too, what feeds that is, look, it's all money gets sucked out of the system from every direction. The litigiousness of the culture is to blame for that, too. Like, if there's a pill out there that cures you of this and the doctor doesn't prescribe it right away and God forbid something terrible happens, then they sue you for it's a whole fucking web of bullshit. Yeah, exactly. From a quote I heard on Project Censor, news is novelty without change. Interesting. Thank you. Appreciate that. Snoops Sean says, Keaton secretly has a crush on Russell. When Russell found out, Russell said, I can do better. Thank you, Snoop Sean. Appreciate that. South Africa is not a policy, it's a campaign ad. Not sure why. Well, I mean, they're really leaning into certain messaging, I'll say. I think that's undeniable at this point. All right, let's move on. We got Glenn Loury and Tucker Carlson.
All right, so our friend Glenn Loury came on the show a while back, not too long ago, a few months ago, with his lovely wife, Luann. And we asked him, I am pretty sure we are the first people that really asked him directly what he thought about how so many of the intellectual dark web people had completely flipped on freedom of speech regarding one particular country after October 7th. So here's what he said when he was on our show. Why do you think so many who extolled the virtues of Western civilization and the tradition of the debate until October 7th suddenly found an exception on October 8th?
Yeah, you're right. You do put me on the spot, both with respect to commenting on my nearly 20-year partner in conversation, John McWhorter, and with respect to speaking in public about the conflict in the Middle East, period, full stop.
I mean, we could turn the heat up even more. We could ask Luan to go first. Hey, what do you think? And then toss to you. Just some backstory on that, by the way. We were acquainted with them because it was reported on in the New York Times, of all places, that Luan, his wife, is a progressive, and she listens to left-wing podcasts, including Jimmy Dore, Max Blumenthal, and Do Dissidents. So we read in the New York Times that she liked our show, so that's what made us reach out. So we know her politics are not exactly in line with his. So that was what was behind that. Make this really interesting.
Well, we'll get to Luan.
We'll get to all right. Luan.
All right, I don't want to preempt anything because I agree that would be interesting, and it's going to get interesting before it's over. I think two things. I think, how many babies are you going to bury under rubbles of collapsed building with multi-thousand-ton bombs falling on people who basically can't fight back? You're shooting fish in a barrel, I think. I can comment on that. You can't tell me I can't notice that. You can't ask me to unsee the photographs that I'm seeing. You can't ask me to unhear the reports that I'm hearing. That's not anti-Semitism. That's not anti-Zionism. That's humanity expressing itself. Don't ask me to not notice that. I think that. I think the protests have their warts and all. They have their excesses. They have their stuff that I'm not going to try to defend. You know, of people, and of course there's anti-Semitism. I agree that there's anti-Semitism. On the other hand, I'm so proud of these kids, I could burst. By the way, at Brown, half these kids are Jews. The kids that got arrested occupying the president's office, half of them were Jewish. Some of my Jewish students are amongst the leading protagonists in expressing outrage at what's going on. So I think that. The other thing I think is the irony is exquisite. This is apropos to the dark web stuff and to John and woke racism, for example, because the identitarian factor driving the pro-Zionist advocacy is like stupefying. These people are taking identity politics to another level altogether. You're going to tell me that my Jewish friend who has never set foot outside of New Jersey, but who dreams of immigrating to Israel and establishing a life in a Jewish country, isn't an identitarian?
Boom. Boom. We were not sure how he was going to answer that. There really was not much of a public record of his thoughts on that. So we were very happy to see we were in agreement on that. Now, he didn't just stop there. He has continued. He still has his show with John McWhorter. Now, I mentioned also in this interview with Glenn, hey, man, I liked McWhorter's book, Woke Racism. I've talked about when I went to the dissident dialogues, how eye-opening it was for me because all these people basically had a foreign policy that could have come off Antony Blinken's desk, and McWhorter very condescendingly, and this was last May. It was like the height of the Columbia University protests. And McWhorter, they asked him if he thought we were past peak woke, and he said pointedly, referencing the protests, well, I would have thought so until 2 weeks ago. And that was very much the attitude, with some rare exceptions, like Li Fong was at that conference. Of course, he had a different view. Schellenberger, I talked to him about it on camera, and he expressed a different view. But for the most part, that was the general view. But Glenn has stuck to his guns, and here's an exchange that actually came up in his interview with Tucker.
There's a reason for the apartness, and it's a very urgent reason. And then you have a debate over what you do in the situation of that reason. What do you do about people being led by a group of terrorists explicitly dedicated to Israel not?
You stand up a Palestinian state. You give those people political rights within a authentic order of sovereignty. You don't keep them stateless for a half century.
But what do you do physically? How do you allocate territory given that situation?
You just said.
Okay.
Just said.
Shall we agree to disagree about Ta-Nehisi Coates and move on?
Damn.
For crying out loud. Anyway.
It's so funny, Glenn, on that situation, though. We're not there.
How many are you going to kill? How many are you going to starve? How many are you going to destroy their habitat? How many are you going to push around like pieces on a chessboard?
Hamas is dedicated to wiping Israel off the map. What do you do about that? It's hard.
Kill them all? Is that your answer? Because that's what's happening.
Suppose what you're trying to do, and here's where there is legitimate debate. You're trying to take out Hamas. I don't know if that's possible, but if you're trying to do that and they hide behind their own people, what does one do?
No, it's not possible. I think we're learning that right now. They hiding behind their own people. All I see is rubble. I don't think there's any place left to hide. There's not a school. There's not a university. There's not a mosque. There's not a hospital. There's not a shelter.
And if you stopped doing all that, the problem is, i.e. the complexity of this is, Hamas wants to wipe Israel off the map and will do things like they did on October 7th, and they vowed to do it again.
Because they don't have a state. I'm sorry, I won't take much time. I don't want to derail this, but what Loury said before was that's the perfect answer. If they don't have a state, they cannot organize politically and militarily, which means the only form of resistance is going to be an October 7th style attack. The way you prevent that, what you do is you give them a state and political rights. He answered the question already, and this guy is just so dumb on purpose. Sorry.
What do you do about that is the issue to debate, not looking at the situation and saying they're being...
That's Israel's issue to debate. I'm an American. The issue for me to debate is what do I do with my country's resources on behalf of my ally? That's the issue to debate. I think there's plenty of scope in that area of debate for different opinions about what we Americans put our imprimatur behind.
Oh, I agree.
So let's debate what America should do. I mean, I don't know the answer to the dilemma of Israel. I don't know.
Does anyone? And that's the thing. But it is not as easy as, oh dear.
Well, is kill them all okay? Can we debate that? Is kill them all okay? I mean, that would solve the problem. Drive them into the sea. Drive them into the Sinai.
Nobody is trying to do that, though. And everybody knows it.
Everybody, laughable.
Nobody's trying to kill them all.
Laughable.
I think the people, and there are many of them, who use the word genocide in reference to what's being done to the people in Gaza, do take that position that you're trying to kill them all. And I think there are many of those people. So you're wrong
I would
to say that nobody's saying
there are
it.
too many of those people, and that's a misuse of the word. Misuse as in a manipulative use of the word, just like we use white supremacy here. It's not a genocide. It's a horrible, horrible thing. But nobody's trying to kill all of them. That's not the point.
Oh, no? It's not the point. I would like to ask him that question.
Moving on.
Yeah.
Boy, we are both going to catch it for that.
Well, him more than you. Yes.
Yeah, him more than you. McWhorter sees what the consequences are that Glenn pays and is very carefully stupid on purpose.
Right. We're going to pay for that. By we, I mean you, not me.
Yeah, look, man, I mean, it's amazing to me. I understand, like, you're partners with somebody on a podcast for 20 years. You put up with certain things. We're partners on a podcast, 5 years? I know Keaton finds Pizza Hut acceptable. I put up with it.
Yeah.
I put up with it. You know, you develop a relationship, a friendship. You overlook certain things. I don't know how he does a show with that cat, man. Yeah. I really don't. I mean, I understand. Look, I went through that. Obviously, I don't have a 20-year relationship with somebody with these views, but yeah, on a lot of the culture war stuff, I was sympathetic to what a lot of figures like McWhorter had to say. Like I said, I liked his book, Woke Racism. But October 7th was just very clarifying about who these people actually are. And if you cannot see a genocide taking place before your eyes, and you cannot, earlier in that clip, they talk about apartheid, and McWhorter's denying that it's apartheid. And Loury's saying they got separate roads.
Yeah.
They have checkpoints.
Yeah.
The South Africans say it's apartheid. I mean, it's just incredible. So Loury went on Tucker show this week, and Glenn Greenwald tweeted this out. The Manhattan Institute has long postured as opponents of cancel culture. Loury has found a large online following because of his careful and scholarly approach to discussing issues. The discussion of his firing, starting at 5912, is well worth hearing. So, yeah, the Manhattan Institute is one of these kind of think tanks that claims to be defending the Western classical tradition of open debate and inquiry. And ironically, they basically do urban policy. They're not even oriented towards international policy. And yet, they probably got some calls from some of their Zionist donors. We don't know. But they fired Glenn. So here he talks about it a little.
And commentaries and so on. And I signed on there as a senior fellow, John Paulson Senior Fellow at the Manhattan Institute. And we parted company recently at their behest, both their sponsorship of my podcast and their employment of me as a senior fellow, because of some of the public comments that I had made at my podcast and some of the people whom I have interviewed there, where the issue of the conflict in Palestine and Middle East and Gaza and Israel has come up. And I ran afoul of the sensibility of my friend, Raihan Salam, who's president of the Manhattan Institute, wrote me saying that we review our scholarly relationships from time to time. This is practically a quote for productivity, and there's no question about my productivity. I've put a dozen articles in their city journal over the last 5 years, and shared priorities. And so I assume it's that we don't share priorities, and the priorities that I assume we don't share have to do with me inviting an historian colleague of mine on the show, the Glenn Show, to talk about the post-October 7th, 2023 incursion of the IDF into Gaza, which he characterized in the same kind of language that international human rights organizations have used as being, if not genocide, then in the same ballpark and something that one needs to be concerned about from a human rights perspective. He thinks the International Criminal Court and the International Court of Justice are right to take initiatives that are holding Israeli officials to account for the prosecution of that conflict. And I had him on the show.
Now, who is he?
His name is Omer Bartov.
Bartov.
He's a student of the Holocaust, of the Nazi extermination campaign in Eastern Europe, and has written books about that. And he's been my colleague for 20 years at Brown. I've gotten to know him, and I knew that he was engaging these questions in a controversial manner, and I wanted to hear from him, so I had him on the show.
I am completely obsessed with Alp, and we're totally
hey, we want a cut of that now.
Yeah, cut of that. Yeah. Alp.
So, hey, man, he has on a scholar who's critical of Israel, and that's it. And this is the Manhattan Institute, typical kind of, freedom. The Manhattan Institute is a community of scholars, journalists, activists, and civic leaders dedicated to advancing opportunity, individual liberty, and the rule of law in America and its great cities. Cities, not even involved in international affairs. We work to improve the quality of life in our urban centers with a particular focus on the problem of urban violence and the need for public sector reform. We offer constructive alternatives to identity politics to help overcome our nation's ethnic and cultural divides. It hardly needs to be said, but what could be more identitarian than Israel and Zionism and the idea that this particular country and this particular group are worthy of protections that groups like the Manhattan Institute vociferously argue against for every single other group, regardless of their history with genocide, with slavery. They don't want those carve-outs except for this one group. We champion educational excellence and educational choice for all families. I assume they mean charter schools. We believe that expanding economic freedom is essential to achieving widespread prosperity and upward mobility. The Institute is a public policy think tank, the publisher of City Journal, and a network of emerging leaders. So one of their tabs is culture. They have to say about culture. We seek to overcome America's cultural divides by offering constructive alternatives to identity politics.
Yeah.
Except for one identity. Except for one particular identity, apparently. So Glenn, again, we thank him for directing us to this. Brown's Glenn Loury details being fired from the Manhattan Institute for criticizing Israel's U.S. financed destruction of Gaza. He's then asked by Tucker Carlson, could you have gotten away with it if your criticism were about any country other than Israel, even the U.S.? And this is his answer.
But I think this is a really revealing thing that you're describing. And I wonder if the conversation had been about an American bombing campaign somewhere, there have been so many, but of any country that we've been bombing, you know, and you had said, I think this amounts to collective punishment. And I think it's wrong. This is not how civilized nations behave. If you'd said that about the United States, would you have gotten the same reaction?
No, in my opinion, not at all. You know, the issue of Israel and the nature of the October 7th attack and the political climate that's been created since, and the advent of vigorous protests on American campuses, and the need to marshal, you know, all hands on deck here for the project of Zionism, a project of defending the project of establishing the state of Israel, which is under threat, requires people to get in line. And I think that's what's going on here.
I just think it feels to me counterproductive. I love the United States. I'm never leaving. Tons of things about American history I would not defend. Why would I? Slavery. You know, I like the American Indians. Don't think they were treated very well. That's our part of our founding, and it's depressing, and I'm happy to say that. I think the Vietnam War was a disaster. Iraq was a disaster. U.S. government.
Right at that moment, he lost 100,000 subscribers.
It's very unfair what happened to the American Indians. Very unfair.
How dare he? They were fighting each other before we ever got here. They had slavery.
Did all that stuff. And I say that as someone who really loves America. And I'm not attacking America, but like, it's okay to say that. It doesn't mean I hate America, right? Don't you think that's a better way to approach public debate? Rather than just like, you must read these lines and anyone who disagrees is like a Nazi. That doesn't help the people pushing it.
No, it does not. No, it does not. And I mentioned Haaretz actually wrote an article saying, hey, you're worried about anti-Semitism. Wait until they say that the Jews took down Harvard.
Right.
Exactly. I mean, none of this is good for any group.
No.
For any group. I mean, we were talking about it in the previous segment. What did this con job of anti-racism lead to? It empowered the racists to ape the same kind of language and the same kind of precepts. suppression of speech always just leads to an enormous backlash. I mentioned I was fascinated because I've been studying some ancient civilizations. There was a court advisor in ancient China, I think in the Han Dynasty, who said to stop up speech is more dangerous than to dam up a raging river. Right?
Yes.
Understanding even in that early stage of civilization how dangerous it is to suppress speech. It is just amazing how few people in the Zionist camp understand the forces that they are putting into motion with this campaign to stop all dissent, even from a respected conservative scholar like Glenn Loury. Like, what do you think that signals to people? Particularly if you understand, if you know that one of the principal tropes about Jews is that they have this power behind the scenes. Do you really think you're helping that by going on this whack-a-mole campaign to shut down all speech? Like, you understand that the only thing standing between Jews and an enormous wave of the kind of anti-Semitism that you claim is sweeping through the nation, but really is not, is going to be somebody like Trump, who has that kind of control over that population, who go along with this Zionist shit, but don't like it mostly, and don't like Jews, frankly. All it's going to take is for Trump or somebody in his position with that group to say, yeah, and you know what? These fucking Jews, and that's it, man. That's it. And you have put any leader who wants to seize that in a position where you have a large part of the population has been primed to believe the absolute worst, not least by what they're seeing on their social media coming out of Gaza every day.
Yeah, Loury, we might reach back out to him to see if he wants to come back on the show to talk about this, which maybe he will, maybe he won't. He might be in enough trouble already.
He seems like a man who sticks to his principles.
Well, it's funny.
Look, he's not dumb. He knew he was courting this risk talking about this.
Oh, of course. And when we asked him, because we interviewed him prior to the election, we interviewed him like in the summertime, and we asked him who he was going to vote for, and he kind of hinted that he might be voting for Cornell of all people, because he knows Cornell, he likes Cornell.
Right.
So, he considers himself a conservative. He sounded pretty independent to me, sounded pretty heterodox to me when we talked to him. And he's an interesting guy, and he always struck me as a very good person, which is why it's not really surprising to me that he has this take on this issue, because really this is a test of who you are as a person as much as anything else. And so it's not surprising to me that he took this position, and it's not surprising to me that they canned him over it. Life goes on. He doesn't need him. He'll be fine, and good for him.
Yeah, and he's still a Brown.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Skelvin Knight, thanks for the $5. The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past is the best game ever made. That was a good one. I love you guys. Give him hell. Thank you, Shelvin. Appreciate that. Mary Beth Hewitt, thanks for the $20. Thank you for reporting the news that actually happens. Appreciate that, Mary Beth. Eric Torres. Oh, by the way, you're up next, so you might have to load a video.
I know. I'm about to do that.
Eric Torres says one of Latin America's greatest contribution is the potato, a species of nightshade, but they lack skills. I know. Let's deport all the flavor. That'll fix things. Thank you for that. Trump should really get the Nobel Prize as he officially ended apartheid South Africa, says Wasim Garani. Appreciate that very much. By the way, a street where U.S. consulate in Johannesburg is located has been changed to Lila Khaled Street after these racism accusations. Monkey Rotary, excuse me, sirs, we are not racist. We just, I know you're being satirical, but I won't even say that to not trip the AI censors here. Our action should tell you how much we love the Browns. Thank you for that. Cowbell, please, for Monkey Rotary for the $50. Appreciate that. That's very kind of you, my friend. Thank you. Appreciate that very, very much. Let's get a cowbell up for Monkey Rotary. The Vanguard boys knew Kamala was going to lose when a week before the election they turned to hating on TYT. Thank you. Sorry to deviate from the topic, but I've completed my union steward and health and safety rep for my union. Oh, huzzah. Thank you for letting us know that. All inspired by this show, you lads in the Amazon documentary. Wish me luck. Good luck, Furrow Squeen. Round of applause in the chat.
Rock on.
For Furrow Squeen. Rock on. Absolutely.
I don't know what's her job. Do we know?
I don't know. Maybe she'll call in. Tell us.
Yeah, she hasn't called in a while.
EO Shush. So when Trump took over the GOP party, corporate Dems teamed up with GOP Never Trumpers to create, in a sense, a reverse Southern strategy to get Dems to focus on sex and race instead of economic issues. Thank you for that. That's correct. It helped corporate Dems fight against Occupy Wall Street and Medicare for All, and the Never Trumpers used the Democratic Party to take out Trump to try and take over the GOP from Trump power over it. Don Lemon's dad is a tool. Hey, he does look like Don Lemon's dad. McWhorter reminds me of Damon Wayans in Bamboozled. My real name, Pizza Hut. Keaton, I was willing to overlook weird Zegler, but goddamn, Pizza Slut. Yeah, I mean, I don't eat it because it's, they support
Now
Israel.
we're boycotting, yeah.
Yeah. Now I don't eat it,
but he likes it. What is it you like there? The wings? Isn't that?
Well, I like the wings and the pizza. I like the wings and the pizza. I like it all. I'm not a pizza snob. I'm a pizza lover. I like pizza of all kinds.
I'm a pizza snob. I had that pizza at Carboni's. Didn't like it. Won't try pizza here again.
Yeah, only Hillary Clinton can save this country now. Hillary 2028. Thank you, Snoop Sean. Appreciate that. Okay, Big Papa Mau Mau. I think Fitz says for the $10. Russ, have you ever seen the movie 400 Blows? It's a French film. It will speak to you. There's a typewriter. I've actually never seen that one. I don't know if you've ever seen 400 Blows.
I never saw that.
Yeah. That's like one of the Criterion movies.
Why? Does he try to steal the typewriter?
Not sure. I've never seen it. It's a famous movie, but I've never seen it. Mahmoud Ali, thanks for the $4.99. Nobody is oppressed as white people and Zionist Harvard students. Thank you. Yes.
Listen, man. I gotta say, I've been criticizing the woke and the anti-racist. If there is one thing since the election that Trump's base have proven them right about, they are the biggest fucking snowflakes on the planet. Like everything they said about white tears, they were absolutely right. I must say, man, it's amazing. It is it is just amazing to see white people claiming that white South Africans are oppressed. Wow.
Yeah. Really unbelievable. Wow. All right, let's move on. We got two more, and then it's time for the Q&A.
All right, so Habeus Corpus. You better take it out to the movies because it's going to be gone soon. White House actively looking at suspending habeas corpus in immigration crackdown. So this is Stephen Miller, who, look, man, if this country ever rediscovers its equilibrium and its justice system, this guy's going to prison. But in happier days for him today, before his jail time in the future, this is what he had to say about the habeas corpus that in the future he may not be able to avail himself of.
Hold on, there's a question back there first. Well, the Constitution is clear, and that, of course, is the supreme law of the land, that the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus can be suspended in a time of invasion. So I would say that's an option we're actively looking at. Look, a lot of it depends on whether the courts do the right thing or not. At the end of the day, Congress passed a body of law known as the Immigration and Nationality Act, which stripped Article 3 courts, that's the judicial branch of jurisdiction over immigration cases. So Congress actually passed, it's called jurisdiction stripping legislation. It passed a number of laws that say that the Article 3 courts aren't even allowed to be involved in immigration cases. Many of you probably don't know this. I'll give you a good example. Are you familiar with the term temporary protected status, or TPS, right? So by statute, the courts are stripped of jurisdiction from overruling a presidential determination or a secretarial determination on TPS when the Secretary of Homeland Security makes that determination. So when Secretary Noem terminated TPS for the illegals that Biden flew into the country, when courts stepped in, they were violating explicit language that Congress had enacted, saying they have no jurisdiction. So it's not just the courts aren't just at war with the executive branch, the courts are at war, these radical rogue judges, with the legislative branch as well, too. So all of that will inform the choices the president ultimately makes, yes.
Mr. Miller.
Gonna burn in hell.
Stephen Miller is so evil. I'm playing that for him while he's still alive.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
We only play that when an evil person dies. A writ of habeas corpus compels authorities to produce an individual they are holding and to justify their confinement. It's been a key avenue migrants have used to challenge pending deportations under the Alien Enemies Act, a rarely used 18th century power Trump cited to deport Venezuelan nationals he's accused of being gang members to a notorious mega prison in El Salvador. It's also been how recently detained students such as Rumesa Ozturk and Mahmoud Khalil have challenged their detention. The Constitution says habeas corpus may not be suspended, quote, unless when in cases of rebellion or invasion, the public safety may require it. Steve Vladek, a national security law expert who teaches at Georgetown University, said that requirement is key. Quote, this last part is not just window dressing. Again, the whole point is that the default is for judicial review, except when there is a specific national security emergency in which judicial review could itself exacerbate the emergency. The emergency itself isn't enough, he wrote on his blog. So in theory, based on what he's saying, even if they could demonstrate an emergency, they'd have to demonstrate it's an emergency that judicial review would thwart their ability to address. Miller also doesn't deign to mention that the near universal consensus is that only Congress can suspend habeas corpus. The writ of habeas corpus has been suspended only 4 times, according to the National Constitution Center. During the Civil War, in parts of South Carolina overrun by the Ku Klux Klan during Reconstruction, in 2 provinces in the Philippines in 1905, and in Hawaii after the bombing at Pearl Harbor. Quote, if Donald Trump can sweep non-citizens off the street and fly them to a torturer's prison in El Salvador with no due process, he can do it to citizens too. Representative Jamie Raskin, the top Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee, said last week, quote, because if there is no due process, no fair hearing, you have no opportunity to object. So now, why are they doing this? Why are they doing this now? Why are they bringing up habeas corpus now? This has been the pattern with this administration, and this has been the strategy. They've decided, given that there are pretty strict legal constraints against most of what they want to do, and by nature of the fact that the country was born in a rebellion against highly centralized authority, and the Constitution is structured around avoiding that kind of concentration of authority, but they want that kind of concentration of authority. They apparently decided they're going to rule by decrees of emergency, of invasion, these very rare cases and stipulations that would allow you to slip the bounds of these constitutional strictures and these congressional oversight and judicial oversight. We see it with the arrest of the mayor in New Jersey, the threat to arrest the Congress people, claims of threat to safety. They'll just claim some kind of legal justification where there is none. So the reason I think now they're talking about habeas corpus is because they're losing in the courts on the Alien Enemies Act. 2 more judges blocked Trump administration's use of Alien Enemies Act to remove certain migrants. All right, so they can see the writing on the wall. They're even getting ruled against by Trump appointees on this interpretation of the Alien Enemies Act and the claim that Trenda Aragua is an invading force. We've seen intelligence leaks over the last week or two that the intelligence community does not believe that there's any coordination between the Venezuelan government and Trenda Aragua, something that Tulsi Gabbard was very upset about, seeing that leaking rather
Well, 3 different leaks going back months, yeah.
Yeah, rather than that the Constitution is being shredded by the administration. That doesn't seem to bother our new national intelligence director. But yeah, they could see the writing on the wall. As the article said, it is through habeas corpus that they are challenging these detentions. So now if the courts are going to strike down the use of the Alien Enemies Act, well, now they have to find a way to completely get around habeas corpus. So once again, as is their pattern, they're going to claim an emergency. Look, the Constitution has already been broken. Trump had no right to impose unilateral tariffs. He did that by claiming there's an economic emergency. And he went on to say that the emergency goes back to 1935. That's not an emergency. That's not an emergency by definition. So we've already met the constitutional crisis and failed because you have a Congress that is completely compliant and will not exercise its congressional prerogative to stop him from enforcing these tariffs. Now, a lot of states are suing, and given the way things have been playing out in the courts so far, he'll probably lose. I mean, most of these things he's doing, it seems like even conservative judges see the danger of opening this door, because what happens when the opposition is in power? Even if you like the policies he's enacting, you're completely tearing down all of the checks and balances that the system is supposed to be predicated on. It seems that he'll probably lose on the tariffs too, but they seem to have proceeded on the basis, well, by the time that would happen, all the negotiations are going to be over, and they're right. Like, how long is it going to take for these state lawsuits to wind their way through the courts? All of this is going to long be resolved by then. So you basically have a lawless administration that is just doing whatever it can get away with and seeing what the courts rule against. And then when they rule against it, ignore it, or find a way around it, or find another pretext to do what they want.
Yes. And, obviously, Barack Obama suspended habeas corpus, which Chris Hedges, sued him over with the indefinite detention. And so, yeah, one thing paves the way for the next. It's a question of at what point does the government just take restraint out of its vocabulary altogether? Right. At what point do they push it to the point where everybody is actually in their crosshairs?
Right.
And you just don't know. This administration has made very little effort to comfort people in that way, to put it mildly. And so, yeah, it's obviously a very scary thing, and it's a result of them, as you said, I think you're right, losing in court. As Trump's approval rating continues to go down, and as these losses in the courts rack up, they're likely to get more authoritarian, not less, because it's the only way they know to fight back. So, this is going to be a real test of the system in that way. And so, it's something that people have to be ready for, because yes, it is absolutely a terrifying thing. No doubt about that. It's a very, very scary time for a number of reasons on a number of fronts, including this one. I mean, habeas corpus is in the Magna Carta. I mean, you're talking about pre-Constitution. I mean, you're talking about, a precedent, going back 800 years. Some might argue it's a pillar of Western civilization, which the Trump base seems to love so much, right?
Yeah, until they don't. Yeah, that's what it's about. It's not about the immigrant. Yeah,
Right.
So you hate the immigrant, you don't care about the immigrant. It's not about that. It's about you. It's about you. It's about if they can do it to them. Raskin, we're not fans of Raskin either, but stop clock twice a day and all. Yeah, man, that's what it's all about. Once they get rid of habeas corpus, and you combine that with the Patriot Act, yeah, they could grab anybody and send them anywhere. Who's going to stop them?
That's right. That's right. Who's going to stop them indeed? All right, we're going to pause for a quick word from Rumble Premium here. So this sponsorship is from Rumble, and it's one that's incredibly important to the survival of the company. When Rumble first started in 2013, they built the platform for the small creator. They didn't censor or have biases. They were fair and treated all creators equally. No one thought platforms would censor political conversation or censor opinions on issues like COVID, but they did. Facebook admitted they fell to pressure from the Biden and Harris administration. Rumble did not, however. They held the line, and they are attacked daily for giving shows like us a voice to talk to audiences like you. They're attacked in corporate media. They're attacked by governments like France. They're attacked from brand advertisers who refuse to work with them. So while corporate America is fighting to remove speech, Rumble is fighting to keep it. But Rumble won't survive with brand advertisers alone because they don't get many of them. So watching our show on Rumble is the most they can ask from you. But if you really believe in this fight and if you have the means, one major way you can help Rumble survive is by joining Rumble Premium, which is the ad-free version, of course, of the Rumble platform. So join the community that believes in the First Amendment and believes in our human right to free speech. Rumble is offering $10 off with the promo code STUDIO when you purchase an annual subscription. So go to rumble.com/premium and use promo code STUDIO. Like I said, if you have the means and believe in the cause, now is the time to join Rumble Premium. If you don't have the means, we are, of course, just happy if you watch us on the platform. All right. Thank you very much for that. And thanks to Rumble, not only did Rumble give us the homepage tonight, but they just put us on first on the homepage, which means we have probably our biggest Rumble audience ever. 5,000 strong in the Rumble chat. This gives us a historic breakthrough because between the Rumble chat and the YouTube chat, we now have a total audience of 7,000, which is good for the ultra rare 6666 drop. Up to 5,100 in the Rumble chat. Smash that follow button while you're here, everybody. Thanks very much for joining. Wow.
And I get, this a little less rare.
In the year 2525.
There you go. 5,100 now and growing. 5,200 now and growing over on Rumble. Wow. Thanks to the Rumble team for plugging us like that. We appreciate that very much. And by the way, folks, if you're watching on YouTube, this is the final segment of the night. So afterwards, we are going to be switching to Rumble exclusively for the Q&A. So everybody can head over there to this live stream, dudissidents.com/Rumble, right at the conclusion of the show. All right, let's take some super chats and Rumble rants. Brent Yoendo, thanks for the $10. Anyone else's relationship with escapism completely different in the last 2 years? I cannot gauge what feels good. Dark feeling around everything. Anyways, thanks for helping me keep some form of sanity. Thank you, Brent Yoendo.
Thank you.
Alex Das Leave, thanks for the $4.99. Proof we're in the worst timeline. No pepperoni pizza balla. L'chaim. That's right. Pizza balla rigged. Rigged against pizza balla. They should have a Stop the Steal rally at the Vatican to protest the papal vote because pizza balla got robbed. It was a rigged election.
We got deep dish. We should have thin crust.
Yeah, we got Chicago deep dish over there. Pope deep dish over there. Yeah. Rich Namulala, thanks for the $2. Got here late, fellas. Nietzsche's tomorrow. What time, Russ?
Oh, shit.
Oh, you're going to an open mic tomorrow?
That's right. I think the open mic there is at 9. That's right. I meant to announce that. Yeah. So Nietzsche's Buffalo.
Russell Dobular, live poetry, Nietzsche's in Buffalo. Yeah, we are the featured live stream on Rumble now. We're playing on the Rumble homepage now. We're actually playing on the Rumble homepage now.
Oh, wow.
So
All
that
right.
is pretty great. That is pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
Thanks, guys. Big
Thank
up
you.
to Rumble.
Thank you. You like us. You really like us.
You like us. See, this is how you know Rumble is a free speech platform. See, they mean it. They mean it. Habeus Corpus is alive and well on Rumble. That should be your tagline. We're for Habeus Corpus here.
The fans asked that they produce us, and they did.
Right. That's right. They produced us. They've shown the body. What the hell is that? Something just book just fell off the shelf. Let's see. David Santucci, thanks for the $20. Whatever else Loury might say, you could tell his heart's in the right place when he says, "I'm so proud of these kids, I can burst." Yes, absolutely. No, he's a good guy. He always struck me as a very good guy, which is why we were very honored that his wife was a fan of the show. That's how we met them. Eric Torres, hey, Russell, Fahrenheit 451 is my favorite book. It was a pleasure to burn. It sent down a rabbit hole in high school. Don't blame me for that, my friend.
I think I read Fahrenheit. I think I'm pretty sure I was in grade school, but I was weird like that. I was into sci-fi and horror.
Oh yeah. Well, I did I ever read Fahrenheit 451? Did we read that in school? I forget. I don't think so.
I'm almost positive I read it in like 6th grade.
Interesting. Snoop Shaw and Chuds 2024, Bidenomics, Chuds 2025, you will own nothing and be happy. Oh, there you will own nothing and be angry. That's MAGA's thing. You will own nothing and be aggrieved.
I was going to say that would make good merch.
That would. Yes, you will own nothing and be angry in the red backdrop with the Times New with the MAGA font. Boom.
Boom.
I like that. Print it. Put it on a schmata and let's move some product. By the way, if you're watching on YouTube, our products are tagged in the video. So, hey, buy a shirt, buy a mug, Go ahead. Buy a shirt, buy a mug. Yeah, there you go. There you go. All right. Let's move right on along here. Okay, folks, we do have one more segment left on the night. It is Mother's Day, of course, and Code Pink released this video for Mother's Day explaining the radical sort of anti-war origins of the Mother's Day holiday. Medea Benjamin tweets out, on Mother's Day, we loudly proclaim we will not raise our children to kill other mothers' children. So let's take a look at this.
Special Mother's Day shout out to all the women around the world who are working for peace. Do you know that the original Mother's Day proclamation was a call for peace, a call for disarmament, a call for men to put down their weapons? In fact, the most beautiful part of the original proclamation said, we, the mothers of the world, will not raise our children to kill other mothers' children. It's such a beautiful sentiment, if only it were true. Did you know that there are 26 women in the U.S. Senate, most of them mothers, grandmothers, but only 3 of them have voted to block weapons to Israel? Those 3, they're Elizabeth Warren, Tina Smith, and Mazie Hirono. But the other ones continue to vote to send our tax dollars to a genocidal regime that is killing babies every single day. It has killed over 800 babies under 1 year old. That has been starving children now. This cannot go on. So we must appeal to those women, politicians, not just as politicians, but as mothers, as grandmothers. Join us in the call for peace. Stop sending weapons to Israel. Let's push for a world where mothers' children do not kill other mothers' children. Happy Mother's Day.
So, the original Mother's Day proclamation is what she is referring to Here by Julia Ward Howe. While countries around the world celebrate their own Mother's Day at different times throughout the year, several countries, including the United States, Italy, Australia, Belgium, Denmark, Finland, and Turkey, celebrated on the second Sunday of May. In the U.S., the official holiday stems from the efforts of Anna Jarvis of Philadelphia, who in 1907 began a campaign to have Mother's Day officially recognized. In 1914, President Woodrow Wilson did this, proclaiming it a national holiday and a public expression of our love and reverence for all mothers. Long before that, however, in 1870, Julia Ward Howe, an abolitionist best remembered as the poet who wrote Battle Hymn of the Republic, worked to establish a Mother's Peace Day. Howe dedicated the celebration to the eradication of war and organized festivities in Boston for years. Today's commercialized celebration of candy, flowers, gift certificates, and lavish meals at restaurants bears little resemblance to Howe's original idea. There is nothing wrong with that. But here, for the record's sake, is the proclamation she wrote in 1870, which explains, in her own impassioned words, the goals of the original holiday. Arise, all women who have hearts, whether your baptism be that of water or of tears. Say firmly, we will not have great questions decided by irrelevant agencies. Our husbands shall not come to us reeking with carnage for caresses and applause. Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn all that we have been able to teach them of charity, mercy, and patience. We women of one country will be too tender of those of another country to allow our sons to be trained to injure theirs. From the bosom of the devastated earth, a voice goes up with our own. It says, disarm, disarm. The sword is not the balance of justice. Blood does not wipe out dishonor, nor violence indicate possession. As men have often forsaken the plow and the anvil at the summons of war, let women now leave all that may be left of home for great and earnest day of council. Let them meet first as women to bewail and commemorate the dead. Let them solemnly take counsel with each other as to the means whereby the great human family can live in peace, each learning after his own time the sacred impress, not of Caesar, but of God. In the name of womanhood and of humanity, I earnestly ask that a General Congress of Women without limit of nationality may be appointed and held at some place deemed most convenient and at the earliest period consistent with its objects, to promote the alliance of the different nationalities, the amicable settlement of international questions, the great and general interests of peace. And, of course, this is a statistic that is both horrifying and, sadly, almost certainly an inaccurate understatement. At least 7,920 mothers killed since October 2023. Israel is wiping out a Palestinian woman every hour in Gaza. Some are buried with their children. Others survive only to pull their children from beneath the rubble. Now, those are, of course, the mothers who have been identified and confirmed dead. Mm-hmm. The number is, of course, much higher than that. In addition to that, this from March of this year, Israel attack on Gaza IVF clinic, a genocidal act. According to UN Probe, the UN Commission of Inquiry said Israel had intentionally attacked and destroyed the Palestinian territory's main fertility center and had simultaneously imposed a siege and blocked aid, including medication, for ensuring safe pregnancies, deliveries, and neonatal care. So this is the UNFPA. Every mother deserves a safe birth. Yet Adla had to deliver her baby under bombardment and displacement in Gaza. Watch her story and see how UNFPA, a UN sexual and reproductive health agency, is supporting mothers during humanitarian crises.
أنا كنت أخاف أنا كنت أودع في أولادي كنت ممكن أموت أنا يعني هنا لأنه لو صار معي لا سمح الله نزيف فيش مستشفيات ممكن ألد في الدار فيش إسعافات وقفت ففترة آخر شهر أنا فترة الاجتياح فيش أكل بالمرة كان وبداية حبل إن كنا ننام في الجوع أنا بداية حبل ليه إن الحامل تقول على إنها ولابنها قصفوا كمان العدوان فحكونا النازحين تطلع منها طلعنا من كمان عدوان توجهنا لدار خاله احنا بديش اطلع يعني قلت يعني وين اروح؟ ماليش حد، انا ماليش هنا، انا هنا ماليش حدا في غزه، انا حياتي داري في الشمال، حياتي في الشمال. رحنا على دار خالي لجوزي، قلنا ممكن نرجع لبيتنا في اي وقت. البيت انهدم، قلت مش مشكله، بقعد فوق الركام بس بديش اطلع من الشمال. قصفوا مربعات عنا، زوجي صاوب، اولادي صاوبوا، فلما صابوا اولادي وزوجي وما فيش مستشفيات صاروا ينزفوا قدامي. فانا قلت خلص بدي اجازف يعني انا ما كنتش قادره امشي مشوار، انا حامل في التاسع ومتقله وما كنتش قادره امشي. انا كنت افكر كيف انا بدي امشي، ممكن انط في الطريق مع المشي، ممكن انط في الطريق، فانا كنت خايفه انط في الطريق. وفعلا اللي صار فيش حليب، فيش مصاص. طب احنا طالعين ما فيش معنا مصاري، يعني من الشمال ما فيش شغل. عمر المولود الان شهر، وانا الان متواجد في خيام في ملعب اليرموك.
Amnesty International puts up, oops, what's going on with my slideshow? There it is. Testimony from Gaza: to be a mother during genocide is to fight every minute, every second. So this was published by Amnesty International. This is from an anonymous woman who does not want to reveal her name for fear of her safety. But the Palestinian Mother's Day is actually celebrated March 21st. So what the first piece that we read from indicates that, you know, May, the second Sunday in May, is not a global Mother's Day holiday. That's where we recognize it in other countries. But in Palestine, it was March 21st. March 21st marks both the beginning of spring and Mother's Day in Palestine, a day of celebration of hope, but it is hard for us to think of hope now. My 12-year-old son apologized to me because he could not buy me a present on Mother's Day. I hugged him and said that their survival for now is the most precious present that God has given me. I want nothing more. I live in Beit Lahaya. We are still sweeping the rubble, trying to restore our damaged house to make it livable more than a month after our return to the north. Everything here is a struggle. To be a mother during genocide is to fight every minute, every second to maintain your family when nothing is available. Getting clean water is a battle. Securing food is a battle. Getting fresh vegetables or fruits is a dream, but I am a lucky mother because my children are still alive. I look at my children and feel guilty because they have been denied their childhood. They were forced into the cruel world of adulthood, of war, no schools, no playgrounds, no daily walks by the sea. I hear bombs and wish I could wrap them with my own body, wish that my love, larger than the universe, could protect them, shelter them. Half an hour before we were due to break our fast on Mother's Day in Ramadan, we saw that the Israeli military had ordered our area to evacuate. But to where? We are tired of displacement, of carrying an entire life on our shoulders and fleeing again, starting all over again. We are trying to rebuild the remnants of our lives. We were hoping to do that without fearing the non-stop bombs raining on us. Was that too much to ask? You have no choice under genocide. You gamble with death. Please stay away from my children. We were already displaced on 9 occasions to flee death. We tried to cheat it, but eventually you know that we are all defenseless against this. I do not know if we will survive this round of bombardment. I do not know if the world will remember that one day people lived in a small place called Gaza, which had the most beautiful coastline in the world. Here lived people who wanted to live. They had so many dreams. They wanted to raise their children under normal circumstances, but never got the chance to do so. All I know that if we do not make it, we will leave knowing that we did everything in our power and beyond to protect our children. Beit Lahaya is the capital of strawberries and flowers. It is now a city of rubble, smoke, and stench of death. But please remember us by our strawberries and poppies, and remember the names and faces of our martyred children who will never have the chance to give their mothers a present on Mother's Day. And here is from TRT World a few mothers describing the daily struggle in Palestine.
أنا حمل كتير أوجاع في هذه الحرب. تعبت كتير هي أكتر وحدة بتحمل أوجاع في هالدنيا.
أنا بشوف كل أمهات العالم بتطعم أولادها وبتشرب أولادها وبتجيب لهم لبس. إحنا كأمهات في غزة بس همنا نأكل أولادنا ونشربهم ونجيب لهم مأوى ولبس، وإحنا هاي اللي بنفكر فيه.
أنا كأم بأحزن على أولادي يعني أنا لما أشوفهم بياكلوش زي الأولاد الناس اللي برا. يعني الأولاد اللي برا بيبقوا ماسكين خبز، بيجوا أولادي يطلبوا مني أنا ما عنديش. يعني بيبقوا لابسين لبس حلو، بيجوا يقولوا لي ماما لابسيني حلو. طب أنا ما عنديش. يعني بنتي بتطلب مني بندورة أنا مش قادرة أوفر لها. يعني في تكية بناكل، فيش تكية مستحيل.
نودي أولادنا على المدارس كمان مش قادرين. أنا بنتي هيها بصف أول، يعني ما دخلتش أول، وهيها طالعة ثالث وما راحتش المدرسة كمان.
عشان هيك أنا بضل حاضنة أولادي خوف على حالي إني أخسرهم. أنا مش مستعدة، يعني ممكن أخسر عمري كله ولا أخسر واحد من أولادي. يعني إن طلعوا برا لازم أطلع أجيبهم من الطيران. وخاص نصب اللي في 16 هذا اللي بتبقى تحوم في الجو، أنا ببقى خايفة عليهم كتير كتير.
بخاف على أولادي أنا أكتر من روحي، كل تفكيري وهمي في أولادي. يعني بقدرش أمن لهم ولا إشي أنا من اللي هم بيطلبوه.
إن أنا مشاعري كأم، يعني أنا مشاعري صعبة جدا، وأنا في حياتي مأساوية جدا. أنا إلي يعني أولادي استشهدوا وأنا ربيتهم أيتام، وبعدين إحنا مشتتين، إحنا كده يعني ناس هنا وناس هنا، فأنا بخاف عليهم. لما بيروحوا مشوار بقول يا رب أشوفهم تاني ويرجعوا بالسلامة.
الحياة هنا الحمد لله رب العالمين جحيم صعبة كتير، لا في أكل ولا في شرب ولا في ملابس ولا في أدوية للأمراض ولا حاجة، الحمد لله رب العالمين.
ولما بسمع إن حدا من الجيران ولا من حدا تاني اتصاوب أو استشهد بعيط، لأن أنا حاسس بإحساس الأم، حاسة إن أنا أم الكل.
أنا كأم نفسي أعيش كأمهات العالم، أعيش في بيت مريح وأعيش في مكان نظيف وألبس أولادي إشي نظيف وأخليهم أحلى الناس، زي ما أمهات العالم تعمل لأطفالها.
So, you know, in the last segment we were talking about, or 2 segments ago, Glenn Loury's views on this, and I said, you know, it doesn't surprise me that he feels the way he feels about this, because even though he's a conservative and, you know, views generally probably don't line up with mine as much as some others, he strikes me as a good person. Candace Owens talks about being a mom a lot. She just had, I believe it's her second baby, maybe her third, I don't know. But she talks about how this offends her as a Christian, as a family values oriented person. You know, we started the stream tonight with a Mother's Day segment about how this country makes life hard on mothers. You know, when you talk about this bombardment of Gaza, you're talking about a genocide of the family. You were talking about an assault on the family. It is an offense against the family. And I hope that part of what is driving a shift in public opinion that is broad enough to get people like Marjorie Taylor Greene to tweet against an anti-boycott bill is that at a certain point, whatever your politics are, this has to offend you at your core, especially if you are, as most Americans are, a family-oriented person. You know, and so, you know, when you look at the level of devastation here, you look at just day-to-day stories of mothers talking about how, you know, we sleep in the same room as our kids so that if a bomb hits us, we all die together in an instant, and no one survives the other and has to suffer the loss of living without the other. You know, it is just, it's so much to take, and at some point, it has to be too much for the average person to take. And I think this transcends politics at a certain point. I think we're far past that point. But information travels slowly, especially when there is an infrastructure set up to suppress the truth of what is happening there. But I think, again, I hesitate to say we've turned a corner, partly because it's a cliche and partly because there have been several times where we've thought that. But I think the backlash against the anti-boycott bill last week was a good sign. I think the fact that these protesters are being let out of jail, winning court cases, and you're seeing modest pushback from Trump. Yeah, these judges are activist judges, you know. I think we are starting to see people wake up to this.
There is definitely a kind of gradual sea change in the conservative movement. I mean, these battle lines were drawn pretty early on with Tucker putting Munther Isaac on his show. Candace has taken this position from pretty early on. Obviously, the Daily Wire meltdown, which I got to say, man, I mean, it looks like there are a lot of rumors Daily Wire is going bankrupt. I would say this is a big part of why. I've said it again and again from being around MAGA rallies, from being around Trump rallies. Most of them do not like this shit. And I think it's very revealing that the station, the conservative station, most associated with Zionism is collapsing, while most conservative media is thriving. And if you look at if you take Daily Wire out of the equation and you look at who's really prominent, they're either don't take a strong position on Zionism or they're anti-Zionist.
Right.
You know, I mean, everybody else who's really look at Douglas Murray, man. He's doing a please God don't end my career tour. He's talking to anybody who will have him at this point, trying to have a redo on his Joe Rogan interview and talk his way out of it. It seems like that interview pretty much ended his career. Like so what does that tell you about where the conversation has shifted? When I went to Dissident Dialogues last year, there, at least in that room, there wasn't a lot of dissent, man. There wasn't a lot of dissent, or if they had dissent, they were keeping it to themselves. We covered, Brianna's debate with the Penguin and the Riddler there. And yeah, man, I mean, the room was very against her. Right. I don't know that you would have the same reaction now. I mean, it seems like we're hitting a tipping point on this, which thank God, these poor people. That's where now, because who's in power has shifted, we're talking more about the conservatives. But even now, when I see the liberal class complaining about Trump, they're the same back to brunch liberals. Harris had been elected, the same atrocities were going on, all would be right with the world. They wouldn't have a word to say about it now. It's like they didn't have a word to say about it then.
Yep, indeed. Let's take some more Rumble rants and super chats here. Eric Torres, time fell asleep in the afternoon sunshine. The Yuppies, thanks for the $5. It really must hurt to these crooks when an actual intellectual like Glenn Loury speaks the truth. Yes. Baby Ethernet says, thank you, Stephen Squidward Miller. Yes, he does. He's like a Squidward. Yes, he's like a SpongeBob character. Marvin Vargas, thanks for the $2. As a humble goyim, I appreciate 2 honest J's. Well, appreciate that, Marvin Vargas. Eric Maines, thanks for the $10. It's all fun and games headbanging to 666 because you have a record audience until Russ suffers a brain hemorrhage. If he does bring him back, young Frankenstein child to do a putting on the Ritz soundbite. Thank you for that. Herford, on the music scene, check out the lyrics to Red Horizon by Fit for an Autopsy. Probably a little heavy, but check out the lyrics. Thank you for that. Yes, there you go. Let's see. Am I the Owl says Shiloh Hendricks, Kanye West, Daryl Cooper. What do these 3 people have in common? They're the 3 top favorites in the race for Dude Dissident of the Year. Can't wait to see who is. Thank you for that. Vito P says, great show. Congrats on the numbers. Cancer sucks. You guys rock. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Ma'am. Free shit. They did extraordinarily extradite Canadian citizen Maha Ara back in the day. Blank State says Magna Carta didn't protect Wat Tyler and the peasants who campaigned against unjust taxation in the 1381 Peasants' Revolt from Richard II and the King's Men. Government documents have always been fiction. All right, Rumble gave us the homepage. We'll try and sell some of their coffee. I think that's only fair, folks. So damn right. Still haven't tried 1775 coffee? Now's your shot. The 1775 starter kit just dropped. Only 1,000 units. You're getting the bold dark roast that hits harder than a CNN fact check, the smooth medium roast, and the Vitality mushroom coffee for clean energy and laser focus. No crash. All single origin, small batch, toxin free, and mold free. Plus, you're also getting a gold spoon clip, because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. Damn right. A frother strong enough to stir up your coffee and your mother-in-law's political opinions. And a black 1775 tumbler that says, I don't take life advice or caffeine from a woke sea witch. This is a good copy. I like this. $170 worth of coffee and gear. Yours for $99.99. A limited edition. This is for the ones who've been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble, wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler, it is. So go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit before they're gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something, just like Rumble does. Start your day with coffee that actually backs what you believe. That's 1775coffee.com/studio for 15% off.
That Happy Meal that's been sitting in your small intestine since your 10th birthday cleans it right out.
Flushes it right out. That's right.
I won't eat an ass unless they drink this coffee first.
Yeah, exactly, Ken. On the music scene, check out the lyrics to Real Horizon by Fit for an Autopsy. Probably a little heavy, but check it. Oh, I got that one already. Okay, did that one already. Blah, blah, blah. Here we go. Blank State, Magna Carta. Oh, sorry. I got all these. Here we go. Medea forgot great-great-grandmothers in Congress. Thank you, Nina Kant. Miserable Live, Texas. Mother's Day was started because of peace. I thought it was some mom that was just like, fuck this. I want a day where I get gifts and don't have to cook. No, it's more radical than that. Ken Texican, thanks for the $50. Let's have a cowbell for Ken Texican. Appreciate that, Ken Texican. Thank you very much.
Thank you, man.
Says, went to Mass recovering Catholics today. Dude in the collar said Mass in Pig Latin. Asme. The dude was succinct in his homily. Ukfe Israele. Thank you, Ken Texican. Appreciate that. Free Palestine, says Ken Texican. Douglas Murray, canceled. You've never been. That's right.
Yeah, he got canceled. He got canceled by his own peoples.
Canceled by his own peoples. That's right. Ouch. All right, folks. Well, hey, that is our show. We appreciate you being here very much. We are now going to switch to Rumble for our Q&A. So callers, feel free to jump on the call-in line.
For the intermission today, I have one of my favorite bits from Laurie Anderson.
Oh, there we go.
Little rumination on the nature of 0 and 1.
Excellent. Beautiful. So there will be a 5-minute intermission on Rumble, followed by the Q&A. So if you're on YouTube, you can come over here, dudissidents.com/Rumble. For everybody else, we will see you guys on Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern, back on all platforms. Thank you very much for being here with us tonight. Thanks to the Rumblers. Thanks for the YouTubers. Thanks to Rumble for giving us that homepage. That's a real thrill, real treat.
Yes,
thank you very much.
Guys.
Appreciate that. Of course, thanks to Jake in the booth. Thanks to the mods for keeping the peace in the chat. To those who want to stick around for the call-in Q&A, we'll be back in 5 minutes. Everyone else, we will see you Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern. Until then, thanks for spending the evening with us. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms in everywhere around the world, of course. And we will see you all next time. Be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.